How do you feel?
Oh, like I've been run over by a truck. But I'm alright, I guess.
Glad to hear it. You from around here? Why don't you tell me what happened?
Wait a second, I'm just a tourist. I came here for a vacation. I just got here. I don't know what happened. I'd like to find out myself.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen a little girl?
So, we're recording. This is the Delisted podcast. This week we're discussing the first Silent Hill. I'm Connor.
And I'm Augustine.
And I'm Jessica.
All right. And so this week I did set up a little outline. So I think we should start off with our backgrounds on the series. So I don't know. Do either of you want to start?
I think you should start, Augustine. You have more background than either of us.
All right. So I've been a longtime fan. I didn't get to play the original game until 2011 on my PS3 because honestly, those PS1 hard copies are really expensive now. Even though this game was a greatest hits title, which means it went on discount for like what, $20 back in the day, back in the early
I think it was
2000s.
20. I know that the greatest hits on N64 were $39.99, which is like barely.
Oh, that's definitely in line for Nintendo. $40 is your discount line after several years.
I mean, to
But
be
as-
fair, they had to publish on cartridge, so it wasn't like cheap like its CD
Mhm.
was.
Yeah, in retrospect, that might have been a mistake.
They thought
But-
it was a mistake at the time.
I'm sure the third-party developers did as well. Certainly Konami, because I think they only developed some Castlevania games. For
The same
N64?
Castlevania game twice.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
literally,
and in the sequel, it's a prequel, but you can unlock the original in the sequel.
they literally
So,
released an unfinished game, finished it, and released it again.
yeah, so just don't play that original version. Just play Curse of Darkness or whatever
Just play
that was
Symphony of the Night.
called. Just don't play 3D Castlevania.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as far as Silent Hill, I also recall that there was an official PlayStation magazine cover, which looks sort of indicative of the game, but it looks like a DVD ripoff. I distinctly remember that cover as well, but that was the late 90s. I might have seen it on a magazine rack in person once. But yeah, before playing it, I was more familiar with Silent Hill 2. I think that was easier to grab at the time since it was a PlayStation 2 title. I think I played that in 2007, 2008. And I love that game, but there's some things about the original that I find. I mean, it's a rougher game, but I think that actually adds to the atmosphere, the murky graphics and the industrial sound. So yeah, I love Silent Hill. I'm sad that Konami has let it go by the wayside and turned it into pachinko. But maybe they can resurrect it at some point. I mean, I haven't completely given up on Konami, even though I know they're a profit-driven company. But oh well. All right, who wants to go next?
I'll go next.
All right, go ahead.
So I had never played a Silent Hill game before. My experience was basically Yahtzee's zero punctuation reviews of the Silent Hill games. He loves Silent Hill 2. And the podcast, The Greatest Movie Ever, they end every episode with a sound clip of "I'm here for you, James. See, I'm real" from Silent Hill 2. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good line to pick. It's basically the end of the intro to Silent Hill 2.
I had no idea what it was even from until I randomly saw a cutscene online. And I went to the Silent Hill maze at Universal Halloween Horror Nights. I got chased by Pyramid Head, who's
That's how
not
you
in
know.
this game.
That's how you know they sold out.
But it's like, okay, that maze had sexy nurses and Pyramid Head, and the nurses were not sexy in this game.
No, they were not. They were like, parasite nurses. They are only parasite nurses in this game. It was starting with the second game, they really go into the whole like mutated but sort of sexy nurse thing they were going for.
Yeah. I mean, the sexy nurses are kind of the most famous monster aside from old Pyramid Man himself. Neither of
Yeah.
which appear in this game. So, like, basically, I had kind of rough knowledge, but I'd never played any of them before.
But you're more familiar with the imagery from the sequel.
Yeah, and I know that the movie had Sean Bean not really relating to the main plot every
Oh
couple
yeah, we
minutes.
can go into the movie
I
later
never
because
saw it.
the movie is it's not the first one's not bad, but it's not exactly Silent Hill
Mhm.
in many ways.
How
But
many
yeah,
are there?
there are two. The second one is an adaptation of the third game because that's the one that's an actual sequel to this game, Silent Hill 1. But it's not a good adaptation of that third game. I just
Isn't the
leave it
main
at that.
character like a little girl in the third game?
No, no, she's a 17-year-old.
Oh. Right.
Now, Jessica, do you have any more to add, Connor? Or are
Nope, nope.
you
That's
okay?
everything I got.
All right, Jessica, your turn.
Okay, so I had never played Silent Hill before ever until prompted to do so. I actually didn't know really anything about Silent Hill until I wasn't fully watching the movie, but I was watching it in parts. But prior to that, I thought Silent Hill was about some other premise of like people being kidnapped and eaten by like zombie cannibals, but not full. I don't know why I had this thought in my head that that was like the plot.
That sounds so totally unlike what Silent Hill is.
Exactly. So when I played it, I was like, huh, this is, and watched the movie, of course. But then I watched it and then played it, like actually sit down to play it. I was like, wow, this is totally not zombie related. And the game itself was, I mean, we'll talk about the graphics and all that later down the road, but that had really been my only exposure to Silent Hill. After playing the game, and I kind of wanted to like just get another perspective on it, and we'll talk about our everyone else's perspectives today in this podcast, but it was just I didn't realize how much of a fandom it really, really has. And so yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, that was really my only exposure for sure.
As far as some background on the fandom, I think this is a case of there are a lot of fans who are only familiar with maybe the movie or with one game
Hmm.
and they haven't played all of them.
Hmm.
Or even there are even a lot of people I've noticed who actually don't have any real familiarity with them. Like they haven't played them, they haven't watched the movie, but they just like the imagery. And
Hmm.
I feel like the art and the music is such a strong part of the series that
Hmm.
sometimes you could accuse people of like, oh, you're not really a fan because you didn't experience it firsthand. But
Hmm.
it's such an important part of the series that just liking the aesthetic is like, okay, I see that this is strong enough that you could totally just be a fan of the artwork and all that.
I mean, my hot
Um,
Right.
take right at the beginning is that the story was a lot of fun, but the actual playing part of the game wasn't all that fun.
I mean, that's a valid criticism. The gameplay is not the strongest part of these games. I think it's still important.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it's the strongest part. Why it's not the reason why you play Silent Hill mainly. You
Mhm.
play it for other important reasons. Well, as far as the development, do either of you know much about the development history behind this original game?
No,
I only know that it was by Konami, and I think we've talked about them before, but I don't think really fully in depth, right? We've talked about them before, yes? Am I wrong?
yeah,
We've
yeah.
mentioned Konami. Mhm.
They've fallen
Yeah.
from grace. They make pachinko machines now, and they're sitting on all these wonderful franchises like Contra and Silent Hill and Castlevania, and they're making nothing.
Yeah, well,
Is this the same company where the guy was like, "Fuck you guys, I'm out"? Is this the
Oh,
same?
Hideo
no,
Kojima?
I think so. I'm not sure. I'm not
after Metal
sure.
Gear Solid 5, I mean, he was basically fired. He wasn't really
Oh, okay.
a case. I
And then
mean,
they
I'm sure
made
he wanted to leave at a
what
certain
was it?
point, but
Metal Gear Survival or whatever that game they made. I don't know what
Metal
it's
Gear
called.
Survive, I own it because I got it for $8 new, but I haven't tried it yet. I heard it has like an always online connection or something. I've heard mixed things there, mostly towards negative, but I also feel a lot of it could be people just they don't like the fact that it's not Metal Gear
I
because it's
mean,
like a survival game.
I couldn't hack it in Metal Gear Solid, so I'm just I never got into that series.
Yeah, because Metal Gear Survive is like a weird alternate dimension zombie plague game.
alternate dimension full of monsters. That's familiar.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like Silent Hill. It kind of is from what I've seen, but gameplay wise, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It plays like Metal Gear Solid
But
5
speaking of Silent Hill,
in some
how was
ways.
that game developed, Augustine?
All right, so we have a development team that was created basically. Well, okay, so the developer of the first four games is called Team Silent, but this is a case where a lot of the members change in between titles, but you have a few that stayed on throughout all the games, up to four, and then Konami disbanded them in like 2004, 2005. So that's unfortunate. But the creator of Silent Hill is a man named Keiichiro Toyama, who went on to create the Siren series for Sony as part of Project Siren. And I love those games, but you can definitely see that he kept going with the foggy other world thing in that game, but in the Japanese vein where you're like in a creepy, um, like a mountain village, and there's like weird time travel shit that doesn't happen in Silent Hill. And you also had a lot of characters in that one that you play as because most of the cast does not survive, regardless of what you do. But so apparently, before Silent Hill, he started as a graphic designer on the Sega CD
Mhm.
version of Snatcher. So that's another Hideo Kojima connection there. And he was also a character designer for the game International Track and Field. And currently, his most recent games are the Gravity Rush games, which were on PlayStation Vita. And then the sequel was on PlayStation 4.
Well, those
Uh,
aren't spooky at all.
No, they're not at all. Basically, after Siren Blood Curse, which was the final PS3 Siren game, which was like a well, not satire. It was like an American horror remake, but it was still done by Japanese developers. But they were definitely referencing like American remakes of like Ju-on or The Ring, that kind of thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
And but yeah, he decided that because survival horror wasn't making that too much money in 2008 anymore, he's like, I think I should show that I can branch out. And so he made like a magical girl superhero game.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, those games are fun. Yeah, I think people should try them. The first game even got remastered for PS4. So if either of you ever get the chance, you should play Gravity Rush.
What I've been told is that the main character, a lot of her missions seem like just excuses for her to wear different themed outfits.
Well, that's not completely wrong, but I think that the characters themselves are quite likable. Story's not amazing or anything, but you do play it for the characters. Um,
Right.
so development of this game started in 1996, which I believe was the same year Resident Evil came out.
Is that
So
normal for 3 years of development?
um, well, a lot of PlayStation games could be finished in like a year and a half, even less. But this game had a troubled production history because it was a young development team. A lot of the
Mhm.
people were essentially people who didn't get along with other developers on the other games they'd worked on. And so they were all lumped
Yikes.
together and they were told like, "Okay, well, we don't expect too much from any of you, but we do want to create like a survival horror clone of Resident Evil, so, get at it. Here's a budget. It's, not a great budget, but, make something." And yeah,
Mhm.
that's essentially how we got Silent Hill. It was for as far as Konami was concerned, it should have just been a knockoff Resident Evil. Uh,
Interesting.
and as far as the CG graphics, what did both of you think of the FMV scenes?
They definitely looked a lot
Um,
better than the in-game scenes, but the faces are a
yeah.
little creepy. Like the little girl looks terrifying when she shows up.
Oh no, but in context of 1999 for the PlayStation 1, what do you think?
Well, wasn't
Do you,
Final
I
Fantasy VIII out at that time?
well, yeah, but that had a much larger budget and also it looks a little bit more anime than what they're going for
I
with
mean,
Silent
if
Hill.
you're bringing the budget into consideration, like, and again, like, I watched a couple of other people's takes on it prior to coming today and us talking about it, but I guess that was like a big thing. Like, obviously, we look at it right now and it's like, whoa, those graphics are rough. But I guess back then, like, it was just really good, as far as like for the movie part scenes, anyway.
It's funny
Eh,
you say about anime because when it cut to the movies from the gameplay, suddenly I thought everyone looked a lot more anime. Like Lisa is straight up an anime girl when she's in the cutscenes.
What if I told you that it was made by one person over the course
That's
of 2.5 years, and he had to
unbelievably
sleep in the
impressive.
office? He had to sleep in the office
Did he do the
because
modeling?
yes. So let me tell you the history behind Takayoshi Sato. So he worked on the 3D modeling, and he was like a new developer, just like a recent hire. He didn't have much experience, but he was amazing at 3D modeling. And senior employees at Konami didn't know shit about modeling because they were all their background was in 2D. So they
Right.
asked him to teach them, right? But basically, what they were doing is that they wanted him to teach the seniors how to do like 3D modeling so that they could then go to other games, right, and bring that knowledge in. But they didn't want to give him
Mhm.
like full credit for his work on Silent Hill, right? They were basically going to have him work
Ouch.
under another superior, and that person would take most of the credit, even though he's the one who, he basically taught all these people how to do the 3D modeling, even though he was new. So he basically held the game hostage and was the knowledge hostage and was like, I want credit on this. And they're like, well, you need to work under somebody. And he's like, okay, how about I just do it by myself and then I take full credit.
Wow.
And then they're like, okay, fine, because they thought he was gonna fail, right? And no, he's
Mhm.
like, I am committed, I'm going to sleep in this fucking office. And he did. He would sleep at the office, and when everybody was, out for the weekend or whatever, after hours, they had 150 Unix-based computers, and he would
Mhm.
use all of them in order to render the game, the graphics, or the cutscenes. So that is major
Wow.
commitment and also major exploitation by Konami. That
I
Yeah.
they're
mean, fuck yes, my dude. Like just to spite them for just not giving him fucking credit. Like the fuck. Wow, I commend him for that.
I mean,
Jesus
that's really
Christ.
impressive that he did that all by himself. Like,
I
man, I feel bad
know.
for saying that the faces look creepy now. Like, man.
And
Well, only
also, I think the cutscenes themselves are quite good, as far as like the framing, the way they're shown. I
Mhm.
think
it's
all
only
of that is
Yeah.
good.
Cheryl that I thought was creepy. Everyone else looks fine.
No, you're fine. I thought Cheryl looked creepy AF too. You're good. Like, and I thought that was just part of the aesthetic, just to keep you feeling creeped out
And then like
all the
Alessa,
time.
she looks significantly older in the cutscenes than she did in the game itself. Like when that's
Right.
Alessa on the bed at the end. I'm like, wait, how old is this girl supposed to be?
I know, isn't she like 15 or
Mhm.
14 at
Yeah,
that point? Because she got burned when she was like 7 or something.
yeah. But
Yeah.
she was unburned in the cutscene, but she was lying in the hospital bed. But like, I don't know where that
Well,
fits
it
in the
was
thing.
like her spirit form or something is why she looks healthy in the older form.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, Sato ended up working on Silent Hill 2 as well, and I think the CG in that holds up a lot better. There was also some
Did
mocap involved.
he did he finally get a team? Did they were like,
Oh no,
okay.
he finally got other people because they couldn't deny that he was amazing, basically.
No,
So
that's what I mean.
it
Like
was
they
a
gave him
huge yeah, they gave him an actual team to help him on that
So,
second game.
how many computers did he have to use to render these cutscenes?
For the second game, I have no idea.
No, no, for the first game,
150.
a lot of computers.
Well, that was the technology at the time. Also, I think you'll like this, Connor. He was the visual producer for Luigi's Mansion 3.
I am not surprised at all because
He
honestly,
went on to work for a lot of Nintendo games. Actually, that's all he's done basically. After Silent Hill
Mhm.
2, he did art direction for GoldenEye Rogue Agent, which is forgettable. But then he did a game called Moonbase Alpha, and then the Mario versus Donkey Kong series, right?
Mario
Mario
versus
Tennis,
Donkey.
Paper, yeah, Mario versus Donkey. Paper Mario Color Splash. He was the visual producer. And
That
you
is
know what?
surprising.
We can shit on Paper Mario Color Splash, and I'm fine saying it's not a great game. But I do think the graphics are quite good in that one.
Well, until we get to the special items, they're like I'm
Well,
surprised because the 3D modeling in that game is so bad that
oh well.
this game.
Regardless, it's a pretty decent looking game, and Luigi's Mansion 3 I think looks pretty
Yeah,
amazing for
like
Switch.
in the part in the elevator where like a new button appears, because like Luigi's Mansion 3, that whole game is about finding buttons for the elevator. I was like, oh, this reminds me of that. And I know that as the art guy, he probably had nothing to do with that, but
No, but
honestly,
just think, Silent Hill released 1999. 20 years later, Luigi's Mansion 3 in 2019.
oh
So
man,
that's a nice little, let's go back to horror, but kid friendly horror.
I mean, Luigi's Mansion really, because that was when I was playing Silent Hill. That's the game it most reminded me of, but it's honestly probably because I haven't played many survival horror games.
Yeah, probably because Luigi's Mansion is definitely like a parody of survival horror,
Yeah. And I guess it's
especially
closer
that
to
first
Resident
game.
Evil, the first one, because you're in a mansion.
Well, except for the ghosts, but yes, I see your point of the mansion. Um, Now, so this game was also so when you think of this game, what do you think of American style horror, or are you thinking Japanese style horror when you play this game?
I mean, Evil Little Girl is like quintessential Japanese horror. Like you look at
For
Ringu.
real. Yeah. Like that was giving me, yeah,
Why are they
I
so
agree
scared
with
of little
Connor.
girls in Japan?
Okay, so I've read a little bit about this. So I think that the reason why there's so many ghosts that are like malevolent women is probably because it's like this fear of like after the women die, they come back to get revenge on a patriarchal system that repressed them in life.
But why
And
specifically girls and not like adult women?
Because
well,
they're
there are plenty
sexist,
of
in
there are plenty
short.
of adult women who are ghosts. Like just look at well, I don't remember the specific names, but like demon women that pops up a lot in Japanese mythology and in their pop culture. But anyway, so Silent Hill was meant to be meant for Western audiences mainly, and having read through some interviews with the developers,
Mhm.
they don't really reference any Japanese influences. They're referencing stuff like David Lynch, Twin Peaks. Stephen King is one of the big
Mm.
influences, especially with his novella *The Mist*.
Oh,
They
Mhm.
reference
obviously, yeah.
Alice in Wonderland, Arthur Conan Doyle's *The Lost World*, the films of Dario
When did they
Argento.
reference the Lost World? I got the Alice in Wonderland, but
I think it was mainly in like some character names. There was
oh,
just some a minor influence. It wasn't like huge,
oh,
but
little shout
Alice
out
in Wonderland definitely I can see that.
the little shout outs on
Mhm.
the street. Anyone else notice
Oh
that?
yes, they were all
Uh,
like horror
we had
novelists.
Richard Matheson, Ray Bradbury, Dean Koontz, Michael Crichton, and then weirdly Carl Sagan, which is like I don't quite understand why him.
Maybe they're thinking of like existential horror of
Yeah.
the universe or
He's
something.
an
I don't know.
astronomer for any of our listeners who don't know. Everyone else was like a horror slash sci-fi writer.
And then all of a sudden it's Carl Sagan. Also, a bit of trivia. So Harry and Cheryl's original names were Humbert and Dolores, which was a reference to the novel Lolita, which I find
Ew.
disturbing. I don't know if they were going to have a different plot line there.
Well, that book
Uh,
was like weirdly very influential in Japan, I guess, because they named a whole type of fashion after it.
well, I think it's a good novel, but the subject matter is highly disturbing.
And that's
So,
like because that
and they're
the
Yeah.
supposed
second.
to be father and daughter in this game too,
I mean,
like
so are
actually.
Humbert and Dolores.
All
Well,
technically,
Dolores is adopted, but
but it was
so is
that
Cheryl.
he specifically adopted her for
Yeah, but
yeah.
I
like
don't care if she was adopted. That's gross.
that's clever that
Period.
they
I'm
named her Dolores instead of just naming her Lolita. That shows that they're trying to
that
be
that
sneaky.
shows they actually read the book
Yeah.
instead of just like, oh, I heard about that.
You know,
Let's
I
put it in.
know tangents are bad, but I just want to bring up Lolita. It tells you in like the intro that she dies on Christmas Day of 1952, but it tells you in a really subtle way. It uses her married name. It says Mrs. Dolores, or not Mrs. Dolores, Mrs. whatever the man she married name was, died in childbirth Christmas Eve, and you don't realize who that is until the very last chapter when you find out what her husband's name is. So it's like they kind of were really subtle with Lolita dying in that book.
Yeah, Nabokov. Yeah, he's a pretty great
Clever
writer.
guy. Laughter in the
Yeah.
Dark. That was pretty good. I never made it through Invitation to a Beheading, but that's supposed to be his big one.
And also other references to Western culture. So we have Judy Garland with Lisa Garland. Was another
Mhm.
reference, and
I
then
don't like that.
so I think Alessa's original name was supposed to be Asia, and Dahlia's name was supposed to be Daria, and those were references to Dario Argento's family.
Oh man, Asia Argento and Land
Mhm.
of the Dead. Like my
Yeah.
God, 15-year-old me was like, "This is great."
Also, Kira Yamaoka, who is the sound engineer slash music composer.
Mhm.
His biggest influence was Angelo Badalamenti's music for Twin Peaks. And he also references the movie Suspiria as his favorite movie of all time, or at
Gosh,
least his favorite horror film of all time.
That's a
Mhm.
personal bugaboo for me is that I kind of don't like that movie. But I definitely see it because just like just like Silent Hill goes on forever and then only explains things at the very very end, Suspiria does the same stuff.
Mm.
But I don't believe Yamaoka had much input as far as the story goes
Oh,
for
that's
this
true.
particular game. But I
Mm.
can definitely see him loving the aesthetic and the music in that film. Because I'm a fan of that film, but I agree the story is not for that the original film. The story is not the
Well, like a man
draw.
just comes and tells you everything at the end of the
Oh,
movie.
yeah. The story's not the draw for Suspiria. I watched that film for like the colors, the art direction, the set design, the some of the imagery, a lot of the imagery. The music is great.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably what appealed to him. But as for the last big member, so Akira Yamaoka stayed on for basically the entire series, even after everybody else was gone.
Right.
He even did some. I think he did some contributions with Silent Hill: Book of Memories, which was like the last title, and that was a PlayStation Vita exclusive. It's not a good game, but it's not completely terrible. So he decided to go with industrial music, in contrast to Resident Evil's music, which occasionally goes with techno, but is usually more like classical
Mhm.
music styles. And he went with industrial because he was a fan of like Nine Inch Nails, and he thought that the cold and rust aesthetic of Silent Hill fit really well with the music. And I think that I agree with that.
For sure. Like overall, like I mean, are we can segue into the next topic, I guess,
Well,
or the
first
Uh,
next
maybe
part
we
of
should
that
talk
one.
about what Akira Yamaoka worked on after Silent Hill.
Okay.
so afterwards, well, he basically just did Silent Hill, but he did eventually become an employee for Grasshopper Manufacture,
That's Suda 5-1's
Suda
company.
51's company, where he did music for No More Heroes 2, Shadows of the Damned, Lollipop Chainsaw, 25th Ward, The Silver Case. Most recently, this year he did music for the Dead by Daylight Silent Hill DLC. He
Mhm.
worked on some of the music for Ninjala, which is a Nintendo Switch game. And there's another game releasing at the end of 2020 called The Medium, which is by Bloober Team, the same developers behind recent horror games like Layers of Fear 2, and Observer.
See, I don't know if I can play the medium because I never played the small, and I'll probably be lost.
Good one, good one, good one. But yeah, Sakura Yamaoka is probably one of the more well-known members, just because he's worked on so many things, and
Mhm.
he did eventually start having some story input later down the line. And there was also Masahiro Ito who did the character designs, and yeah, actually, he's really friendly on Twitter. If anybody wants to follow him, he's
Does he tweet in English?
yeah, he does, and his English is pretty good. He tweets a lot in Japanese, but he also in English. He likes interacting with fans. One of the
Aw.
one of the saddest tweets he ever did was saying that he remembers seeing like a mother and her child at a supermarket, and just made him think, you know what? Maybe it'd be nice to have a family someday.
Oh,
Which is amazing
Jesus.
coming from the guy who designed like Pyramid Head and the sexy nurses from Silent Hill 2 and the lying figures. He's designed all the great Silent Hill monsters. And
Mhm.
yeah, he's got some opinions on Konami using Pyramid Head in future titles. But I think if we ever do a Silent Hill 2 podcast, we can go into that since Pyramid Head is not in this game.
Right. I don't have a
Right.
PS2 though, so I don't know how feasible that is.
Well, we'll figure something out. Okay, so let's go into the story, atmosphere, and music of Silent Hill.
The
So,
story. I was amazed by how much of the story is not in the game, and you just have to find from other sources.
well, my opinion on it is that the story, a lot of people say the story makes no sense. I disagree. I think it's a story that you're supposed to think about, and also you're meant to replay the game several times. And I think at that point, you're supposed to play detective. And there are
Mhm.
definitely like incentives to replay again because you do unlock new weapons. You can get the UFO joke ending.
Oh
You
Mhm.
can
yeah.
get different endings, and of course, as far as the endings go for this title, you do actually have to do some side quests related to one of the characters, Dr. Kaufman. and
Mhm.
you need to do another one in order to save Sybil if you want to get the good and good plus endings.
That was the ending that I got, the good plus
Oh,
ending.
the
Oh
good
no,
plus too.
I need to correct myself. In the good ending, Sybil will not survive, but she can survive in bad plus and good plus.
So she's the plus for anyone who's
So the key
Yes,
thing is,
she is the plus of the ending.
if you rescue Sybil but don't deal with Dr. Kaufman, you get bad plus.
Yes,
Yes.
because you get a different boss. Kaufman is who needs to live if you want to get the good endings. But okay, let's step back a bit and let's who wants to talk about like the initial setup for this
Oh,
game?
I will. I will.
All right, go ahead, Connor.
Okay, so we open with our main guy, Harry Mason. He's inside of his car, and he looks over at the passenger seat of his car, and then he gets out of his car, and it's wrecked on the street, and then he immediately starts running, and we get really no other setup than that. He sees, well, he goes, "Where is
Here,
Cheryl?" And
Connor,
then
let me cut you off there. We do have a little bit more setup. If,
We get a
you're
movie
right.
scene
You're
before
right.
the game starts.
Yes,
well, the
Connor.
movie's just kind of like random moments from the.
No, well, you're right, Connor, that if we're going strictly off of pressing new game, that is actually how the game starts. But
Mhm.
Jessica's right in that if you watch the opening intro with that fear of the flesh creates fear of the blood, or whatever the hell the line is, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You do actually see him and Cheryl decide, like, you see him and his wife finding Cheryl on the side of the road, and then ostensibly they adopt her, and then like the wife dies, and now he's a single dad. And
Mhm.
eventually, this is they don't really go into detail, but apparently Cheryl decided she wanted to go on vacation,
Now,
and
is
so they
that
go to
in the
Silent
movie
Hill.
that it was Cheryl's decision, or is that just
No, it's
from?
not. That's in the manual,
Oh, okay, it's in the
which
manual.
we did not
I
have
didn't have the
access to.
manual.
Yeah, unfortunately. But Cheryl wanted to go on vacation, and Harry is like, "Okay, where do you want to go?" And she's like, "I want to go to Silent Hill."
But it's like this isn't part of the story if it's not in the game. You get out of here with that.
Well, you don't really need to know that Cheryl's the one who decides to
Well,
go, but
it's super
base
important that Cheryl's the one who decides to go
no,
because that's
eventually it's revealed that it's important. But if you just want, the basic setup, they go on vacation and they
Wait,
get
don't
into
they
it.
talk about that at the end? That Cheryl
they say
wanted to
that
go on
Cheryl was drawn
vacation?
there, but I don't think he ever says it was her idea to go on
Yeah,
vacation.
I don't recall that either. But
Okay.
yes, the opening intro has some random scenes of various characters, but the important stuff is Harry and his wife. I don't think the game itself says what his wife's name is. I think it's in the manual. But
Mhm.
he and his wife find Cheryl on the side of the road, and they end up adopting her. But his wife dies of illness, and so he's left as a single father. And they go on vacation when Cheryl's 7 years old, and Sybil's driving by, and then they see someone in the middle of the fucking
Wait, is
freeway.
Sybil driving by in the movie?
Yeah, she's the police
I must
officer
have
on the
missed a lot of
motorcycle.
stuff that goes on in this movie because I got it was just random
Did you
images and
just think you
sounds.
just thought it was completely random?
Yeah, it was like random images and sounds for a minute, and then it's like now Harry's in his car, and you get out, you're looking
Yes,
for
those are
Cheryl.
the important parts setting up the car crash, because a
Mhm.
woman just shows up in the middle of the road, who we later find out is Alessa, her spirit form. And so to not hit the woman, Harry tries to get out of move the vehicle out of the way, and then he loses control, which leads to the car crash, which ends
So
the introduction. And then we go back to what Connor was talking about
yeah, you
with
run
yes,
after
go ahead.
Cheryl. You see a vision of her. You run into the fog. You go into an alleyway. Creepy stuff in the alleyway, but the key things are you see a hospital gurney, you see a broken wheelchair, and then when you go to the end of the alleyway, there's like a corpse hanging there. And then you get attacked by the
Mhm.
monkey men who don't show up again until much later. You wake up in a diner, and a police officer named Sybil is there. She's from out of town too. Everyone's gone. The town is covered with weird fog and there's snow going on. She says she's going to go get backup, but she just straight up gives you a gun before she leaves because apparently she had two. And then this radio that's in the diner starts to fizzle and crackle, and a monster flies in and attacks. And that's how you know that the monster somehow set off the radio. So that's your warning system throughout the game. Except weirdly in the sewer level where it just gives up and the monsters show up whenever. But yeah, and that's your warning system throughout the game when monsters are. So you go out, you go back to the creepy alley, you find a note that says to the school. And basically, the whole rest of the game is Harry following various clues that he thinks will lead him to his daughter, wandering around. And he runs into a couple townsfolk, Dr. Kaufman, who is a kind of shady doctor who apparently lives in a motel despite working at the local hospital.
And he's also a drug dealer, as we
Yes, he's
find out
also a
later
drug
on.
dealer. And a crazy old lady who says that the demon Samael is going to come back unless you stop
Which
the little girl.
she has that great line about Harry's coming was foretold by gyromancy. And do either of you know what gyromancy is?
No,
I
what
mean,
is it?
Are we
it's in the
talking about
name.
like a
It's in the name.
gyrosphere?
No, it's in the name. Gyro, like motion. So she's basically saying it was
Yeah.
foretold by this occult ritual which involves spinning in place and then landing on something.
Oh God.
That's how she foretold the coming of Harry. Was she fucking spun in place?
Well, I mean, she's lying though because she didn't foretell it at all. She deliberately summoned Harry.
Well,
Mhm.
regardless, it's pretty
Right.
amusing.
But so the places that Harry goes are first to school, and then the hospital, and then finally, after a little bit more wandering around, a creepy old amusement park. Silent Hill is a resort town, and the people that used to live there before the resort was built followed some crazy old religion, and now there's drugs being pumped in and sold to the tourists, and they're made out of a flower that only grows in Silent Hill. They used to be
Called
part of their rituals, the White Claudia.
mhm.
It used to be
Mhm.
part of their rituals because of the hallucinogenic elements, but now it's being used to make drugs. But
Right.
also, the drug that they make from it is the only thing that can make weird demon parasites leave people's bodies.
Yeah, basically, parasite stuff is kind of weird to me.
Well, like it seemed
It's
like it was a
never.
special case with Alessa, but then it also happens to Sybil. So it's like I guess it can just happen to anyone.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because the parasite stuff. I feel like that might almost be a connection to this game being originally being knockoff Resident Evil. With
Mhm.
the possession thing, because it's not brought up in any of the sequels. Like the idea that you can be possessed by a weird little Silent Hill monster. So yeah, I find that quite strange. But of
Right.
course, this was the original game where they didn't know they were going to be sequels.
Yeah. And then
Right.
basically it's all Alessa got burned up very badly a long time ago. And she has psychic powers and she's the one making the town all weird. But she's actually doing it to try and get away from her mom, who's trying to use her body as the vessel to birth a demon into the world. But she can't do it because Alessa's soul was split in half, and the other half of her soul is inside Harry's daughter. And so Dahlia, the old lady, needs to get both halves of the soul in order to bring the demon back. It's not clear why she wants to bring the demon back. And apparently, Dr. Kaufman thought that it would somehow make him rich, and now he's upset that the demon's just going to kill everybody.
Well, Kaufman, I don't think he actually believed in any of the supernatural crap. I think he was just like, I can use this cult to make money
And the cult
because they
is
have
like
Mhm.
access.
5 people by this point.
Well, the future games will imply that there are more, but yes, you're right. As far as this game's concerned, the only real representative of the cult is Dahlia.
Yeah. And she tells you about the cult. She's like, "Oh, there's this evil cult. Watch out for them." I wouldn't have even known about it if she hadn't told me. Like, come on.
Yeah, because later we find out Dahlia was manipulating Harry into helping with the ritual by getting the different parts right, the
Yeah.
needed
Yeah.
for the unleashing the god. Because as far as they're concerned, they're not. She's not worshiping a demon. She's worshiping God, like the
But
creator.
she told you it was a demon.
Well, it's because she's manipulating you into helping.
Yeah.
I think she could have come up with a better cover story, but
And then like Lisa, okay, Lisa's the nurse you find in the hospital, and she's all freaked out. Everybody you meet who's a real person, they were like unconscious, and then they woke up. So I guess everyone who's awake got taken away, like in Stephen King's The Langoliers. I don't know. But like Lisa, was she dead the whole time? Is that what's going on with her?
I believe so. In the game itself, it's left very
Because she
unclear.
says she was actually one of the monsters, she just hadn't turned into one yet, and then she starts bleeding a little bit, and then Harry runs away like a
Yeah.
bitch and locks the door. Like, it
She
Well,
didn't
was
seem
she
like.
bleeding out of all of her orifices,
Yeah,
as
he was
what's
pretty
said.
terrified.
But yeah, but she didn't seem like an active danger to him. Maybe he could have tried to help before running away.
I feel like he thought that she was turning into something, which he was right. She's turning
And then
into.
she's
Mhm.
just gone when you go back into the room. Then she shows up later to like drag Dr. Kaufman to his supposedly deserved death. But Dr. Kaufman was a pretty stand-up guy, for me at least.
I wouldn't
I
call him a
mean, he
stand-up
got her
guy.
addicted to drugs and
What
then to
is
Yeah, and
that
it
in the
then
game
too.
itself? Because it says that online, but I didn't get that from the game.
I mean,
I-
he's a drug
Isn't it
pusher.
isn't it in her diary?
Well, she makes
Like,
vague references to how she can't quit, but I didn't get that it was because she was on
In
drugs.
in Silent Hill Origins, it is eventually shown that Kaufman also extorts sexual favors from Lisa in
Well, he
order
was
to
getting a
get
little
drugs.
handsy in like the final cutscene there.
Yeah, so Kaufman's in these games is a real creep. So yeah, he's not I wouldn't
Oh, and
call him a
he
stand-up
says
guy.
Kaufman when he introduces himself.
Kaufman.
Kaufman.
Well, the Kaufman's important not because he's a good person or anything, but he does have access to the chemical that will be used to save Harry and potentially Sybil and Cheryl Alessa because it
Mm.
needs to be used in order to basically abort the god.
Yeah.
Because did either of you see what God looks like if you don't save Kaufman and he uses the whatever the
No.
chemical's called? It looks like
Mm-mm.
an angelic version of Alessa.
And
Whereas
is it possible to beat it when it's an angelic Alessa? Shouldn't
uh
it be invincible by the game's own logic?
well, Cheryl, regardless of what you do, Cheryl essentially births it before its time. The
Oh,
only
okay.
difference is
Mhm.
that when Kaufman uses the abortion thing, it turns it into like a horrible demon thing, which I guess is its true form.
Yeah.
It's hard to
Al-
tell. It's called
Mhm.
incubus.
Also, so the teenage girl that looks like Alessa is really Cheryl, whose body has somehow been transformed.
Oh wait, repeat that.
The teenage girl that looks like Alessa is actually Cheryl, whose body has somehow been transformed to look like Alessa.
No, it's not. I don't think it's
Because you
Cheryl's
see
body
the actual
transformed.
physical Alessa there. What you ask where your daughter is, and Dolly is like, "But she's right here," and points at Alessa.
Oh, because Alessa and Cheryl are the same being.
Well,
It's
she
just
says it's
the
her new form, and then Alessa's like still burnt up body is still there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible, but it's a bunch of like supernatural
Like,
spirit
where
stuff. So,
physically is Cheryl throughout this if she's not Alessa?
well, technically, Cheryl shouldn't even have a physical body if she was just a soul.
Yeah,
But
and I do
I
love how
mean,
you
it's
just
Yeah.
weird
get another
supernatural
baby
stuff.
at the end, and he's like, "Well, I came for a baby. I left with a baby. It's fine."
Okay, well, thankfully, this is brought up in Silent Hill 3. So, spoilers for Silent Hill 3, but you do find a note where Harry talks about the events of the first game
Mhm.
and what happens immediately afterwards. And apparently, he was freaked out about the whole my daughter is reborn as a new baby. And he was
Mm.
unsure if she was a demon or not because he's like, this
Right.
could be like a reborn god as in the human form. And he actually considered killing the baby.
Well, Harry,
But
Oh.
no, but he thought better of it and was like, this baby like, when he looked at the baby, it reminded him of Cheryl so much that he's like, "I'm going to raise this child." And in the 3rd game, it is revealed that the baby is Cheryl and Alessa combined reborn.
Shalessa,
Yeah, it's the
like
reincarnation of his daughter.
I
So,
kind
better
of
that he did not kill her, right?
I wish we had seen a little bit of interaction between Harry and Cheryl before everything went to hell, like so we had a sense of their relationship. I know that maybe there's not a place for that in games, but like, come on, a little
No,
bit.
I feel if they properly remade this game, you would have
I mean,
some
they
of
did
that.
on the Wii. They remade.
Mhm.
Well, it's not really a remake, it's a completely different story. It
Is that
just
one
has the
good or
same setup.
is it bad?
So the fan base has a love or hate relationship with that game. I genuinely think it's one of the better Wii games available. I think it's really
Mhm.
good. It's just not Silent Hill. It's basically a reimagining insofar as you have the same characters with the same names, but the gameplay's different, the story's completely different, the endings are completely different. What's going on is completely different. But
Yeah.
I do recommend it to try
Well,
it.
talking about the story, it really does remind me of The Langoliers, if you've ever read or seen that, the Stephen King story. Because it's like
I have not. Jessica, have you?
Mm-mm.
Okay,
it's
Connor, explain a little bit of what the
this
Langoliers is.
group of people on a plane, right? They they fall asleep on the plane and they wake up. Everyone's gone. There's like one pilot left. They land at the airport. They go out into the airport and no one's in the airport. And then they're wandering around. There's nothing there. And eventually these weird monsters come and just start devouring everything. And it turns out the plane flew backwards in time somehow and only the people who were asleep survived. Everybody else just got destroyed by this. But then it turns out when you go back in time, the reason that time continues to move forward is these weird monsters show up and just eat everything, and that's what pushes time forward. And so they have to get back to the present. But like the whole thing, they were asleep and they wake up in a world with no one around. It's basically the main. Oh, and monsters showing up. It's kind of the
Mhm.
main connection.
Hmm.
It's a lesser known King work.
I mean, I'll look it
Mm.
up. It sounds somewhat interesting. Yeah, I
It
don't
is.
mind.
It's much like Silent Hill, it's burdened by 90s CGI. Um,
So
like,
would you recommend reading the story instead of watching the adaptation?
well, this is where I shamefully admit I've only ever watched the adaptation. I don't know
Oh,
if the
okay. So
story is
it could
worth
be
it.
completely different as far as as you're aware.
I mean, usually Stephen King is at least a little bit like even The Shining, which goes in its own direction, has
I mean,
most of
it's
the
still
main.
recognizably The Shining, yeah.
Yeah.
All
Mhm.
right. So, yeah, so what did we think of the story
I mean, it was
overall?
fun to follow along and like the atmosphere, like the part where you climb the lighthouse was really cool, where you go up the spiral staircase and then there's like a glowing
Mhm.
demon symbol. I did think that it got kind of strained by the end because you spent so much time in nowhere when kind of the story was already over.
Right.
I also
Yeah.
Oh, wait, go ahead, Jessica. I'll
Oh,
say
I
that.
was gonna say, yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I felt and granted, like, I'm not I feel like this is honestly, like, my true first time, like, actually sitting down and playing a horror game. Because as much as I enjoyed Phantasmagoria, like, it wasn't really all that scary versus this Silent Hill. So, I like, while I was playing it, I was just like when I first tried to play it, I was gonna record it for my own channel, my own gameplay, and just basically catch myself getting spooked. So when I did it, I was playing in the dark, like, at night in the dark, and granted, my boyfriend works graveyard, so, like, I'm by myself playing this horror game, which I don't do in the dark at night. So while I was doing it, I was just already creeping myself out, and it just, like I just wanted the game to be over, to be honest, like, as far as, like, atmosphere goes, like, it did its job freaking me out, like, just the sound, the imagery, the lack of not being able to see that far when you're playing, but I was really wanting more of the story, which is kind of like, I want this game to end, but I also want more of the story, so I'm just gonna continue on,
So
if
I
that makes
feel I
sense.
feel like that's actually quite a glowing endorsement of the game that it achieved a horror game that achieved the whole like horror thing, right?
I mean,
Mhm,
like we don't get explained everything that happens, but I think because it's all from Harry's perspective, that works. We
mhm.
only see what he sees of what's going on, and of course he wouldn't. Like even when Dahlia like gives her big exposition rant, it still doesn't really explain most of what's going
And
on.
I also feel that Harry doesn't really care. He just wants his daughter
Yeah.
back.
Like when he
Right.
runs into Alessa near the end, he's like, "I don't know what you're trying to do, and I don't care. Just give me Cheryl."
Which I mean is an issue maybe from the perspective of the viewer as far as like we do want to know more about what's going on.
Yeah.
Mhm,
But I do also like the fact that Harry is really so focused on saving his daughter from this
Yeah.
situation
mhm.
And
that
like
he genuinely does not give a fuck. Like he's just
positive
like, I want out.
representation of adoption because at no point is it like, "Oh, Cheryl's not your real daughter." It's just like, "No, no, he's still just as devoted."
Yeah, mostly he just mentions like, oh yeah, she's adopted, but that's it. Just because somebody, just to, it's it's
Do
the
you remember that
backstory,
part with the
right?
telephones in the school?
No, not well, yeah, not
There's
really,
like
but
there's
go
a
ahead.
room with like 3 blue telephones
Yeah.
in it, and
Yeah,
they
yeah,
don't
yeah,
work,
yeah.
they're broken, and then when you go to leave, one of them starts ringing even though it's not plugged into anything. Well, I guess they wouldn't have modeled the wire, so maybe that's not part of it. But you go and you pick it up and it's Cheryl going like, "Daddy, where are you? Daddy, help me." It's just like that was genuinely pretty creepy. And then like when
I
you're
think
Yep.
oh, go ahead. Go finish, and I'll
Oh,
say.
in the mall where suddenly like the security or cameras or the display TVs turn on and it's like Cheryl screaming.
Yeah,
That'd be pretty
yeah.
freaky if you're a father. Oh yeah, also good representation of a single father. Like
What the hell
he
is going
really
on with
does is
the
devoted.
larva that turns into a moth? Actually, that doesn't seem to be connected to anything.
It has something to do with Alessa's fascination with
Oh, right,
insects.
because she had the butterflies in her room. Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and
So now that
butterflies represent reincarnation in Japanese mythology. And that
Right.
totally fits Alessa and Cheryl's situation, where she is
Absolutely.
and Cheryl is and is not Alessa, and combined they could become they renewed life. So yeah, that actually fits quite well.
yeah, I didn't make the connection with the butterflies in her room, but yeah, that makes sense. I was ready to be like, well, that didn't. No, it's
This gets brought back up in Silent Hill 2 as well because Maria and Mary's situation is very
Mhm.
similar in some ways.
Okay.
aren't they twins?
Well, they look identical, but it's more like Maria's a doppelganger. But we'll reserve that for a potential Silent Hill 2
Okay.
cast.
But
But
is she
yes,
real? I'm not clear.
Wait, I
she
don't want to
isn't. Well, she
spoil.
isn't. Well, yeah. Let's
And
not go
who
into
is
that.
she here for? Is
Well,
it
she's here
James?
for James, regardless. But okay, we'll save that for potential, especially since
Yeah, yeah.
Jessica doesn't want to be spoiled on the game.
Oh yeah, I have no idea what
Um,
goes on in the game, Jessica. I can't spoil you.
Uh, and I could accidentally spoil more of
I
what's going
know
on.
because
Though I will say it's a little complicated. But as far as this game, so we agree the story is a bit confusing. I wish that Sybil and Harry had a few more interactions. They do interact in the story, but they don't. You don't really see her very often. I wouldn't have minded even playing as her for a small section to see what she's up to.
Yeah, I mean, my one kind of strange thing about Sybil for me is that in the cutscenes, she's very clearly got like leather pants, and then she's just got normal pants and regular because they can't model shiny textures. It's like, why does she have? Why did they give her leather
well,
pants in the
well, don't
cutscenes?
worry, Connor. They'll make up for shiny textures in the sequels.
Well, I just give her normal pants in the cutscenes. Don't have her in noticeably different clothes.
Well, I feel like they probably had the idea of her wearing leather pants when they were doing the CG, and then they decide fuck it, she just has regular pants in game.
It's like what
And
cop goes around in leather pants?
obviously the CG is already so far along that it's just not worth
I didn't even notice
it.
the pants thing.
Yeah, I didn't notice either because I just chalk it up to PS1 technology.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. There was a time when the cutscenes would be incredibly different from the gameplay, and we're kind of out of that time
They'd have
now.
different hair colors.
But it's like Grand
Mhm.
Theft Auto 3, everybody just has box hands and waves them around and doesn't move their lips in the cutscenes because
Yeah,
uh,
it's
you know,
pretty amazing
Harry's
how far
model
along we've come.
Harry's model really reminded me of the main character from GTA 3.
I guess I can kind of see it a little.
I don't know, like, because again, I had watched. I didn't sit down and watch it fully, but parts. But I know in the movie it's Sean Bean, and then looking at
Oh,
Harry's
Sean Bean's not
character.
Harry. Sean Bean is
No, I know, but like
Well, no,
I
see,
was.
you're not completely right, Connor, on that point.
well, he
Because
changes his
in
name.
the third game, he is assumed in the in the second film rather, which is an adaptation of the
Mhm.
third game, he they have the character change his name to Harry Mason because it's an assumed identity to hide from the cult, right? Like the remnants of the cult. But I find that so ridiculous because why wasn't he just Harry Mason in the movie, in the
Well,
original?
because
Like
the girl was Harry Mason.
Right?
well, no, I know
No.
why everything is so. If we
Mhm.
want to do a little sidetrack into the film, so the
Yeah,
reason,
we can spoil the movie. I've
yeah,
seen it.
yeah,
I've never seen it.
the director of the film was like, I feel like this whole single father thing is just not realistic. Let's have it be a mom trying to protect her daughter because that's way more in line. Like, why would a father want to
Yeah, it's like
protect
a
his
real
daughter?
single dad would just be like, time for brewskis with the boys if his daughter went missing.
I know it's such a backwards thing, even by 2006, 2005 standards. Like, come
You
on,
say that
like,
like 2005.
well, it was
It's
15
pretty
years
rough.
ago,
Well,
but
yeah, but our values have not changed significantly.
I suppose not, unfortunately. But yeah, which is so weird because this game shows such a good father in Harry Mason, and then they're like, "Nah, fuck you, Harry. You can't try to save your daughter in the movie. We got to make a new character."
What is the new character's name?
Rose. I don't remember their last name. Oh, Rose De Silva, and then I forgot the name of the dad. But the scenes with Sean Bean weren't originally in the movie. They were added in because the studio was like, there isn't enough of a male presence in this film.
Is Dr. Kaufman in the movie?
I don't recall him being in the movie, but like I said earlier, the story of the film is drastically different from the game in a lot of ways. Like it's got
Yeah,
Sybil, it's got the same basic concept of parent must save daughter, and that she's the
and it
reincarnation
has
of the girl. But yeah,
yeah, and it has some of the same locations like in the game. So like
Is
the I
Pyramid
think
Head in the movie?
he is. So a
he
lot of things
is.
don't make sense because a lot of the monsters are from the sequels, and they don't fit
Yeah.
with the symbolism they're going for. Like Pyramid Head
That's
is
what
supposed to be like okay. So a little background on Pyramid Head. So Pyramid Head is established even in the second game as he appears that way because he looks like the executioners from Silent Hill's backstory, like the cult's culture.
Mhm.
And but in the game itself, James, it manifests for James in that way because it's supposed to be like a doppelganger for James's like more violent urges or something, like his darker self, which is why he shouldn't appear in anything else, honestly.
Well, I mean, if it was what the executioners looked like, I could see people in a pyramid helmet showing up.
I'm wondering, like, the reason they decided to use the monsters in the movies, because those specific monsters, because those are the more, I guess, memorable
Well, it's
monsters.
like
It was obviously for marketing purposes because Pyramid Head is barely in that film and does nothing.
like it
Right.
segues into graphics, and that the monsters, they're interesting designs, but I don't think it really comes across what they're supposed to look like or be in
In the in-game graphics, yeah, I
yeah.
agree.
And that might be why Silent Hill 2 is the one where people remember the monsters in
Mhm.
Silent Hill 1.
But
'Cause
see,
they
have you seen the renders for how they're supposed to look like though?
I haven't. I imagine they're pretty,
Because let me show you what the ape men look like, the rompers, the
mhm.
ones that killed you last night.
Yeah,
I
Like,
wasn't
they
and
really
you were
sure.
talking about how they're not that bad, and
well,
then
'cause you
you're
can
like,
run
"Nah, I
away
got
from them,
some
but
more."
then there was a
But
gang of 3 of them.
they're the fastest enemies in the game. Let me find a
Do they
picture.
give up
Literally.
eventually, or do they just chase you forever?
I
Because, like,
think they just chase you
one
forever.
just chased me across the entire map and then killed me outside of the hotel.
Oh, that
Yeah, it's
sucks.
quite unfortunate.
Yeah.
I
But
hated how I like got out of the motel and like because I came out like through the front entrance to leave, and it's like literally get like mauled.
I hate when they're waiting for you outside the door. But then, like, I just felt like because there's a lot of, like, dead bodies hanging and oh,
so if you look at them, they're actually quite disturbing how they're
yeah.
supposed to look like. And they also got that weird multiple tentacles coming out of their mouth, apparently, or their face.
Just like the octopus in the hospital.
Oh wow, okay, yeah, that would be really freaky
Yeah,
Yeah.
with
if you
higher
could actually see it,
I think
like
the monsters
game.
in this game, even though they don't really pop, oddly enough, the only monster that reappears from this game in in the sequels are the little roach fellas. I don't remember what they're called,
Oh, I think they're just cockroaches, but yeah, they
but
suck.
That
they
was
have a
giving me
specific
like
name.
Fallout vibes, like, oh, what the hell? This is
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
But
those
then,
monsters have specific names.
like, the graphics I think kind of work against this game because they're so desperate to not have to render that many polygons that everywhere you go, like you can only see a couple feet in front of you, either because it's dark or because there's fog. And they work it into the story, I know, but like at a certain point, it's not atmosphere and it's just not being able to see anything, you know?
I think it adds to the atmosphere because
Yeah,
again,
I
like
agree
I
with
mean,
Jessica.
and
I'd like to
again,
see what the hell is going on. Like it's not
but isn't that kind of the point though, to be like
not to this extent. You can't see more than a foot in front of you. Monsters run up out of nowhere and beat you to death when you're just trying to walk to the goddamn hotel.
I mean, that's kind of like the biggest fear is like the fear of unknown, like the original like
See,
thought
I
of
feel like
being
that scene
scared.
in Spinal Tap where they get back the album cover and it's pure black, and they're like, "Oh, isn't it just like a clean image?" It's like, no, stop pretending that this is intentional and artistic. You just couldn't render enough polygons to show us these goddamn environments.
I don't know.
I don't know.
To me personally, I think it added to like just the element of the atmosphere because on the one end, when I was playing it, and then again, I decided I can't play in the dark. I'm getting too weirded out by this, so I decided to play it all day yesterday. And like I was just listening to like random shit on YouTube, but while playing it, and then like I forget at what certain point I just kept hearing this noise, and I was like, where the fuck is that noise coming from? And then I paused and I like paused my whatever I was playing, and it was, and then I didn't think it was my game. I just thought it was some noise from outside. But then when I like muted the game, I was like, oh shit, that's from the game. Like just like certain like I don't know
That's
what
the
you call it, but like decibels of sound was just like, wow, that's like really getting into my head there.
I know
So,
Akira Yamaoka did such a great job, right? Like every game he works on for the sound design and all that, he's amazing.
so
It's so effective.
the sounds, oh my god, yes, 100% like just uncomfortable playing. And maybe I'm just a big baby about like playing horror games, but I was genuinely like, oh my god, I feel really uncomfortable.
why
Like
was
I
there
literally have to have other sound playing to like finish it. But
Why
that
was there an
sounds
air
fun.
raid siren in the other world? Was there something in
Um,
Alessa's backstory about like air raids or something? Or
something like that. I don't recall why it's a siren. So for the Siren series, Toyama's next game after Silent Hill, when he started working for
Mhm.
Sony, that
Mhm.
actually does have an explanation for why it sounds like a siren, and it's supposed to be like the evil god when it cries out. I don't think that there's something similar to that in this game,
Because like
though.
Harry even calls out, he's like, I keep hearing sirens. Like they put it in the dialogue, like it's gonna be a thing later, and then it just never really is.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm unsure why. I'm
I
gonna
mean,
chalk it up to weird god stuff with
that
the
does add to the
monster.
atmosphere. But yeah, I really feel like the graphics work against this game, and even in the late '90s, I feel like it's still like a legitimate criticism. You can't really tell. And then like all the blood and gore, I mean maybe if that were more realistic it would be pretty off-putting, but I feel like the characters really underreact to it. Like Harry finds a flayed corpse hanging on a fence and he's like,
Yeah,
"What's
that was a
this?"
bit like
See, the only excuse I've got for that is that apparently when you're in the other world, you feel like you're in a dream.
Oh, okay.
Like it genuinely is. It's like the logic part of your brain shuts off, and you feel like you're in a dream.
And the thing is like when you're in the morgue and you try and examine a corpse, Harry's like, "I'd rather not look at this."
I
And
know.
then and then like later Harry's like just stepping over dead bodies like and he just like walks past that hanging corpse in the hall of the boathouse.
Yeah, like as far as like I think legitimate criticism would be and I guess you can argue that it was like the dream world or whatever, but I feel like even when I'm having a nightmare, like I feel like I act accordingly in the sense of I'm just gonna beat ass or just like run away and
Dr.
not really.
Kaufman Dr. Kaufman is like the most matter of fact about what's going on. He's like, "We can't just stand around here yapping."
He's the most lucid, isn't he? Out of all the characters, as far as his actual reactions, he's the most like, "I the fuck is this?"
Well,
Like,
like
I
Lisa
thought all
reacts
this
more
Yeah.
cult
like
stuff
a
was garbage. Like,
Lisa reacts more like a real person, I think.
even though
Yeah.
it turns out to not really be. She's
Yeah,
like she's almost like a doppelganger for the real Lisa.
but I feel like if we'd seen her like just turn into one of the nurse monsters, I'd feel a lot more satisfied about what was going on with her.
Well,
But if you
Lisa does
notice
actually
though,
show
you
up again in
only
Silent Hill 3
What she does?
I was,
in a
I was
brief
gonna
cameo.
You only
yeah.
what? You only see
I
Lisa
was,
in your dreams? In
you
the other
only
world?
see
No, she shows up
Lisa in
being tortured in the third game.
No, I'm saying
Yeah.
I think in the game you only get to encounter with Lisa in the nightmare world,
Uh-huh.
correct?
Yep.
So I
Yeah.
think that was kind of like a egg, Easter egg, whatever you want to call it. Like, wait a minute, she is not normal, I guess.
Uh-oh. I'd
Because
say
she is the
No
only one I
one
feel like acting accordingly, like freak the fuck out. Whereas everyone else is just kind of like, oh, there are people missing.
And then,
That's
like,
it.
at
That's
the end when Dr. Kaufman just walks in with a gun, is like, "Quit screwing around and put everything back the way it was." And it's just like he's just over it.
I mean, he might be a scumbag in the backstory, but in game, I mean, I do quite like
Yeah.
his fuck this. Like, I hate all of this. I'm done with
Also,
all this garbage.
Samael, you just sent us the render for Samael. He actually looked fine in the game. Like, I think the
He was
bosses look
really
pretty
well
good.
modeled. He was really well modeled, I'll say.
Yeah.
You see a lot of the detail.
The bosses look great. The one thing is, like, of the bosses, are we done talking about graphics? Should we move on to gameplay, or are we,
Um, oh, okay. One thing I wanted to touch on is, do you think that the difference between the regular fog world and the other world was done well as far as like differentiating them?
Honestly, they're both full of monsters. It's just kinda like what the pavement on the streets is like.
But I do quite like that the monsters are even more horrific looking in the other world. Like they
Mm.
look like they've rotted from
They
their
don't
fog
seem a
version
lot
counterpart.
tougher is the thing.
Oh no, they don't. They kind of fixed that in the sequels where the monsters sometimes move faster and do way more damage in the other world.
It's like so many times I would just be, like, running down the street pursued by, like, 5 different monsters just trying to damage me because I didn't wanna
I
waste my
d-
bullets.
uh-huh.
I think that worked. Oh, wait, go ahead, Jessica.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, as far as like differentiating, like, I thought that was completely fine, but because like again, feeling freaked out, I just felt even more freaked out. I mean, obviously that's the point, right? To feel more like uncomfortable in the nightmare world. So when you get back to the real world, you get that sense of, oh my God, finally I can feel like I can see somewhat, but it's still like, no, there are fucking monsters still
Yeah, that's
coming
the
at
thing.
you.
Like,
So you never feel comfortable ever. It's
I
just,
feel like the best way they did it was the hospital, where there weren't monsters until you went to the nightmare world, and that just makes sense to me. Shouldn't the monsters all be in the nightmare world? But
Well,
I understand there wouldn't be a game if there weren't monsters all the time.
technically everything's a nightmare though, because when you're in the fog
yeah.
world and you go into, if you try to leave the town, everything is broken.
Yeah,
Everything is
Yeah.
like there's
but
literally
like
no road.
the school is kind of already really freaky, and then you go to the nightmare
Yeah.
school, and it's
It
just
was
like it's
very
slightly more
freaky.
freaky.
There's suddenly
I
like
can agree
fans
with
and
Connor.
shit.
It was really freaky. I think it's just freaky that no one's there. It just, again, adding to
Except
like,
for the gray children.
Yeah, those children, like if they had actually been like melted children attacking you and not just polygon blob, it's like the fighting polygon team from Smash Brothers. I would describe the monsters that attack
Right.
you.
Look at the boss for the bad endings is
I mean,
called the incubator, and it really is just like an angelic Alessa. She
that's
still
basically
attacks
what
with
she
lightning
looked
though.
like right before Dr. Kaufman hit her
To
with the
yeah.
release the god from her a little too early. Yeah.
and then it like climbed out of her back. Like, was it supposed to be
It
cutting a
it
hole in her?
erupted right out of her entire
Then
body,
she
which is
seemed
pretty
pretty
gross.
okay afterwards, though, is the thing. So I'm like,
It's supernatural though. But yeah, I agree that I thought it was pretty disturbing the way it comes out.
Mhm.
yeah. And then like the one thing is going back to graphics, like you take out your gun and you start firing, but like because of the way the camera's set up, you can't actually see the Mothman for most of that fight, which is too bad
Oh
because
my
it's one of the better
God.
models in the game.
Oh yeah, they
Yeah,
did a lot of work
let's
on
talk
that.
about the fucking, are we gonna progress to like actually physically playing the game?
Yeah.
Well, before we move on to that, let's talk a little bit about the music.
Okay,
'Cause
yes,
I think
music.
story, atmosphere, music, all of this feeds into one another
Well,
for
like
Mhm.
the
the like
horror.
two times that it actually cut in with a melody instead of like industrial music was very jarring to me. Like when Lisa died and it starts playing like actual melodic music instead of like the
Yeah,
industrial stuff.
I actually quite like that song.
And I
Mhm.
really loved the
Appropriate listen.
lighthouse scene is like to me the high point of the game where you climb up the creepy staircase and it's like gets more and more ominous and it's like and
Yeah.
then when you're putting the random ass objects, one of them is a Star of David, one is an Ankh, and onto the door at the end. Or I feel like they just had like a book of religious bric-a-brac and they picked six things at random. But when you put them on one by one on the door, the music just gets louder and louder and starts getting more ominous.
Yeah, there's just the sound, like I guess just knowing when to use particular types of music or sound. So like the element of the like the creepy part of industrial, like, walking around through town, but then like for certain scenes, like, Lisa, basically bleeding out of everywhere. And yeah, setting up the different what were they called? The different little things on the door or whatever. Just change of music. It was just very smart. It was just really good. Like the music is good. And then I looked up that you get different music for each ending. Each ending has a different music,
Mm-hmm. I
which
Oh,
I
nice.
was like, wow, that's so cool. That's like
my
Good
a
my
cool
ending got
Easter
favorite
sampled
egg
by a
theme
thing.
rapper.
my favorite theme is for the ending themes is Killing Time, which is played for the regular good ending where Sybil
Mhm.
doesn't survive. I thought that
Mhm.
was quite nice, and I find it really strange that the worst ending in the game gives you a song sung in Spanish. I think it's the only vocal theme in this game called Esperándote.
Oh man.
Mhm.
Is
Yeah,
it
they
worth
went.
playing through again or should I just watch them on YouTube? The other endings.
Um, I would just say, well, I think it's worth replaying this game, especially because there are unlockables.
Oh yeah.
But as far as for if you just want for the story, like just replay for the story, you don't care about the gameplay stuff, I would recommend watching the endings.
Oh,
They're definitely different enough that you would enjoy them.
and then the one thing is the radio, the sound that comes out of there, like it's not noticeably music to me a lot of the time, and it's supposed to be your warning for monsters. So like sometimes that would kind of be a problem for me.
One of my favorite moments as far as the use of sound and lack of sound is the first time you get attacked by an air screamer at the cafe, and
Mhm.
you just hear the radio, and Harry's like, "Radio, what's wrong with that radio?" And he just walks over to it, and he's like,
Oh
"Huh, there's
yeah, and
nothing
then
going on." And then all of a sudden, it just breaks through the window, and then they start playing that industrial song.
Can
The
we talk about how Harry has like no internal monologue?
would you say that the item descriptions would count as that
Oh yeah, I guess so. And that was
since he
another
I
thing
doesn't
that
talk
would
about
reminded
them?
me of Luigi's Mansion, but he says a lot of stuff out loud that he doesn't need to say out loud.
Or like, when just certain things like I wish he would say out loud, and
Oh,
the
like I saw a
acting
bunch of
in this
weird
was
monsters.
yeah, the acting in this was not good. I think
I,
except
I I
for
don't think it's terrible
I liked
actually.
Dr. Kaufman. I
I
thought he
would
oh
did some good
agree
delivery.
the acting is not
Kaufman.
great, but
It's like I'm
it's
Dr.
okay.
Kaufman.
For
Wolfman.
1999, it's okay.
Yeah. It's like I feel like they couldn't have just corrected him on the pronunciation of Kaufman and done another take, but like I liked him, and then but it's the same thing with Deadly Premonition. You remember you like fight like 8 zombies, and then you go to the person. It's like anything weird happened? No, not really.
Well, there's
Yeah.
a reason for that, Connor.
Well, yeah, he has to. I better keep quiet about all these
There's a
zombies.
reason. Oh
Oh
no,
my
there are
god.
actual story reasons for it.
Oh, okay.
Many
But
reasons.
in this game, he's like the cop is like, "What happened out there?" And he's not like, "I saw a flayed corpse on a." He's like, "I'm just looking for my daughter."
Literally, like you would think you would want to relay that crazy ass information.
And he's like, "Have you found anything?" No. It's like you just
No,
fought a
not
bunch of
really.
zombie nurses and doctors. It seemed like they were infected by the same thing that was inside Sybil, but maybe that's just my imagination.
I think it would have just made it if we were able to play as Sybil for like a minute, then maybe like the conversation would make sense because when they were kind of discussing it, he was saying, I'm seeing a bunch of like things, and she's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So is
You're
she
just
just
tired,
never in the
Harry.
nightmare? Right? You're just fucking tired, man. Just take a
Maybe
nap,
she's
bro.
always in the fog world. It's hard to tell. But
Yeah,
if you
it is
if
hard to
either of you
tell.
want maybe some more monologue, they did do a Silent Hill play novel, which is like a visual novel version of the game, and they add a lot more as far as like story, internal monologue, and it's actually somebody ported it to Windows in English because it was a Japan only title. So maybe
Is
that'll
it
be
like
worth.
a manga or something, or
No,
it's
no,
just like words?
it's words, but also with images.
I'm surprised there
It might
are
be worth playing.
Japan-only Silent Hill titles because, like, they've gave it to Western developers. They're really banking on the American audience for these games.
They only really had they. I think the play novel might be the only Japan only title, and that came out in like 2003 for the Game Boy Advance.
The Game Boy Advance.
Yeah,
That's
it was a
nuts.
Game Boy Advance title. But
See,
like I
there's
said, a fan ported it to Windows. I have it on
Mm.
installed on my computer.
there's problems with games like that in that because you can fit in so much more information and so many fewer characters in Japanese that like sometimes there's
Mhm.
not space for English text. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be an issue.
But yeah,
Um,
the atmosphere, the music, graphics, I feel we've discussed. Are we ready to talk about the actual playing of the game?
I
yeah, let's go into the actual gameplay.
I,
So, one thing I want to say from the very beginning is, for as somebody who's played way more survival horror than either of you, like classic survival horror,
Mhm.
Mhm.
the fact that everything is polygonal is pretty unusual for the time because everybody was aping Resident Evil and like
The pre-rendered
the
backgrounds.
pre-rendered backgrounds, which look great, but obviously there's no interaction there.
I mean,
And
I
this
Mhm.
might have
game, oh wait, go ahead.
I might have liked that a little better because I feel like you didn't really get a sense of where you were in a lot of parts of the game. And it was partly because they couldn't push enough polygons to show you very much of the
Mm.
But see the amount of the fact that you couldn't really push as too many polygons at the time is pretty impressive to me. Especially like the fact that it added certain things like when you're on the stairs, you can trip off of them if you run off. And they actually animated Harry like when you run into a wall, he'll actually
Oh
use
my
his
god,
hands to
I
stop
had so
himself.
much fun with that, him running into walls. I
I
was
know,
just
but it,
like
it adds so much to the horror, right? Like the fact that it shows how vulnerable he
Yeah,
is.
Harry, like
Mhm.
in terms of gameplay, they made him into kind of a wimpy character, which is very frustrating from the standpoint of actually playing the game, but it adds to the story.
I was gonna say, I feel like that just gave it a more realistic take on it, if you were in a nightmare world, like
I
how
mean,
badass of a character are you gonna be? Like if
I
that shit really did fucking
I mean,
happen,
he
you know
does
what I'm
pretty
saying?
well considering, but
No,
like
he does, but I think it's weird because certain parts he had a realistic and appropriate response, and then others it was just like, I'm cool, bro.
I find it
Nothing happened.
amusing that unlike the characters in Resident Evil, up to this point, he can actually move and shoot at the same time. Now, I don't recommend it because your aim is terrible, but it's pretty amusing nonetheless.
Well, when you talk about how, like, similar to Resident Evil, it has cinematic style camera angles, and in order to keep your movement consistent, you control Harry with tank controls. Forward always moves whatever direction Harry's facing. But
Yeah.
like you can
Oh,
also
God.
hold L1 and the camera, in theory, the camera goes behind you and it becomes like Resident Evil 4. But in practice, the camera doesn't always go behind Harry, it just kind of goes wherever when you hold L1.
Well, I wouldn't say it goes like Resident
Sometimes
Evil 4,
L1
but it is
goes.
third person, yes.
I was gonna say sometimes L1 or whatever that camera angle goes to like where you need to go, like an important item. At least that's what I thought. Like half of the time, yes, it's shifting our camera for us to face forward as if we are Harry, and then other times it was like, oh, you need to go to this door or something to that effect. I could be fucking wrong though, of
And
course.
I feel
No.
like they kind of, because like Resident Evil commits to having the cinema like camera angles, and Silent Hill kind of does, but it gives you an out, and as a result, neither version of playing the game is all that great. I ended up mostly using the analog sticks and not the D-pad because that was just way easier for me to wrap my head around.
Oh my God, no, I played using the D-pad the whole time. And again, like I don't know if it was just because I'm an idiot and I've never played such a game before with these type of like as far as like using this as controls, but I just think it just added to me being more like uncomfortable and frustrated because I could not move properly at
Like the
all.
tank
So like
controls, Augustine, I know you're an old pro, and these were like not just for horror games, but for like Tomb Raider, for even platformers on the PS1, tank controls were just an accepted thing. But like I can't deal with tank controls, and I know that technically Resident Evil 4 had them, but the over-the-shoulder camera made them a lot easier for me.
Yeah, it was a lot more doable. I think both of you will be happy to know that with the sequels, they give you the option to not do tank controls. You have
Oh my
3D.
god. That is so much
Silent,
nicer.
Silent Hill 4 doesn't even have tank controls. They went full 3D, which I found annoying because I think that the tank controls do fit better when you have fixed camera angles. Because sometimes there was transition, and suddenly Henry, the main character of SH4, will start moving in a different direction than I wanted him to.
That was
But
a
I
real
mean,
problem
it's
in
it's it's obviously a preference thing because I think both of you, if we do Silent Hill 2, you're going to go into the controls and play with the 3D control option.
because like Donkey Kong 64, I would go outdoors and then the camera angle would change and Donkey Kong would go back inside the door. Like I know the problem with non-tank controls,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
still like I was so awkward at this game. And Ariel, she was watching me play. She like thought I was just really bad at it, and I'm like, "You try." And no, it's
Oh no,
really
I
hard to move
I
around.
last night when we were playing Jackbox Party with Ariel, she referenced how she thinks Silent Hill was shitty because of the
Oh yeah, she
controls.
thought there was a problem with the emulator. That it was so
No,
hard to
it's
control the
that's
game.
just how the game
That's
plays.
just how the '90s were.
But Ariel's not really a retro fan, is she?
No, no, but like
She's more into modern gaming.
I'm like, this is kind of from my dead zone because like I had an N64 at this time, so I never really played any PlayStation games back in the day.
Yeah,
the
the
only PlayStation games I played back in the day was, at least I can vividly remember, is Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Frogger, and Space Invaders. I
So
think
like
that's really it.
the cartoony
Yeah,
games.
exactly. Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
But
and
nothing
like
too crazy like Silent Hill.
Crash like limited your possible directions of movement.
hmm
So it was just like it was never that confusing with Crash what hitting certain buttons would do. Whereas in this
hmm
game, oh my gosh. And then like the pipe, uh the wind up for the swing of the pipe is so long that by the time you've done it, half the time I'd gotten stabbed or grabbed by whatever I was trying to hit.
that's why
I
you have to
just
learn the timing on them.
I just use guns most of the time. And again,
Well, yes, but
I played on easy, so maybe
well,
that's
not
like why.
again. This is the first time you said this on the recording.
Mm-hmm.
So you played on
Sorry.
easy mode. I played on normal.
Okay, that's probably
I should have
it
done
then.
easy. I regretted it because I kept like the school is honestly the hardest part of the game. Like couple
I agree
reasons. You don't
because
have
you have no weapons at
yeah,
the
you've
time.
got no ammo built up. You don't have the shotgun or the hunting rifle. You get the shotgun at the end. And it's the only place where like there's a strategy to the boss. All the other bosses you can literally just stand there and fire and fire and fire, but this boss actually has like a weak point you have to take advantage of.
Mhm.
It's not that hard, but it's like every other boss is not a strategy thing at all. And
And
those
of
little
course, you've got the
kids,
Yeah, I
piano
can agree
too.
with that for sure.
those kids are too small, and they run up and they grab you before I could even see them, and then they stab you. And I'm just like, I kept dying on those kids. And like honestly, the hospital level, and even like once you get out of the school, you pass like 5 save points on the way to the hospital. It's nuts. Like there's one in the bus, there's
Yeah.
one in the garage, there's one in the church, there's one in the control room. It's
What
just
did
like,
what did both of you think of the outdoor sections where you're just wandering around town?
I mean, the daylight ones are pretty good. I wish there was more visibility. That's going to be my repeated thing that I say about this game. I wish I could see what was going on a little better. Because it's not just
I
like, oh, you can't see danger coming. I literally had no idea where I was. I had to keep looking at the stupid map just to figure out
I
where in the
I
room.
I feel that that's the point though, but I understand that you would have been fine with fog if it were if your distance the
Just a
viewing distance was a
little bit
little
more
bit better, right?
distance. Yeah, I
mm,
just want to be able to
I feel that Silent Hill 2 does have a little bit
like
more.
some distinguishing landmarks that I can see or something. Like even when I've
Mhm.
got my flashlight in a room, like that's why nowhere was honestly so tough for me because I
Oh yeah, you
couldn't really
have no map
distinguish a
and
lot of
nowhere.
doors and I could never and then like and some of the doors have writing on them which makes it easier, but like
right.
once I got the key that was electrified, and like now I have to go back through the door I came from because the elevator's broken. But which door did I come from? And I was literally like wandering around forever just
And
trying
then
every
like
door.
half the doors are locked too,
I
and you
went
get
back to
that
the jewelry
message.
store like twice because that was like the only other open door on that floor. And those friggin' kids kept coming out at me, and I wanted to save my health because I knew the boss was coming. So I was like, oh, darn.
I read in an interview that there was actually another part of town you would have gone to, and you would have wandered around there as well, but they cut it out because for time. And
Mhm.
that's why the opening section where you're wandering around town is like the largest section in the game as far as,
Mm,
like pure play space
Oh yeah.
because they
I,
worked on that first.
I kept getting killed by dogs on my way to the school. It's like I was so afraid to use my bullets. Like if you use your bullets, the monsters outside are no problem at all. But like I wanted to save
yeah,
them. Like even the
absolutely.
monkey men, they go down pretty. Like sometimes they go down with one shot. The monkey men, but
So I
I
have
don't.
a question since you played on normal. So
Yeah.
is there less ammo then if you're
Yeah,
on
there's
normal?
less ammo and there's even less on hard.
Okay, okay. Because
But
I
like
was gonna say, like, I didn't have any problem finding like I didn't have a fear of running out of like ammo at all, really.
like I
But
had
again,
over
I played on
100
easy.
bullets by the end of the school, but by the end of nowhere, I was down to like 15 because I had to put down the creatures in the hall in nowhere.
Mhm.
Just I didn't want to die, and I knew that for the boss, you could just use your rifle and your shotgun.
Right. I did get lost in nowhere for like a little bit. I was the last key I needed to find was the key of Eraton, whatever that
Oh
one.
yeah,
The
with
last,
the I gotta de-electrify the thing. There's a lot of stuff going
yeah,
on in that one. And then
yeah.
without the elevator, you have to figure out which doors magically warp you down to the thing.
Mhm,
And then
mhm.
like nowhere, I just want to share with you guys. I was using not an online walkthrough. I was using a guide by Brady Games, like a PDF of the actual guide that came out and was a commercially available product. And it was
Okay.
just wrong sometimes. It was just like sometimes in a malicious way. Like, okay, so near the beginning of the game, it tells me to pick up the channeling stone in the convenience store. And I was looking for like a long time. It turns out that doesn't appear until your second playthrough.
Do you think maybe the Brady Games Guide was based on like a beta version of the game?
I mean, it could have been because, like, okay, the piano puzzle, its description of the piano puzzle makes no sense, and then its solution for the piano puzzle is not the right solution. So I had to look that up online, and then by the end, when you get to the zodiac puzzle, so like there's a bunch of zodiac signs in the room, and
Mhm,
spoilers for people listening, there's numbers under the signs, and what you're supposed to figure out is the numbers are the number of limbs that all the zodiac creatures have. So then you're
mhm,
supposed to go up to the pillar and put in those numbers. Okay. The Brady Games guide is like the secret is to realize the changing month underneath each zodiac sign. And then it says like put one under Scorpio on the pillar. There's no Scorpio on the pillar, and you're not supposed to put one for any of the answers. So it's just like it gives you the wrong solution to the puzzle. And like I was stuck there. I could have probably figured it out. I think I want to believe I could if I had not looked at the strategy guide first and it had messed me up.
That's
Mm-hmm.
unfortunate.
And then somebody online gave the hint, like, a man can take off his pants 21 times. It was like, that was the hint that somebody online gave, and it's like, I
Actually, that
still
is true now that you're saying that. Because the guide, the game, the walkthrough that I used, I had no problems as far as like every answer for the puzzles was like yes, that it works. But I don't remember seeing a Scorpio now that I think, and even here
No
on this
Scorpio.
guide, it's not showing a Scorpio picture either.
So yeah, the Brady Games guy just straight up told you the wrong answer. So in
Mhm.
Europe, they thought the children were too freaky.
They didn't want to show children be hurt, like
Oh.
childlike figures be hurt. So in Europe, they got the Mumbler, which looks like a fucked up teddy bear with claws,
Well,
right?
those look like the things that attacked you in the opening cutscene.
Yeah, they kind of do, don't they? But no, they were the gray children.
I thought those were
Mm.
monkey men that attacked you in the opening cutscene.
No, they were gray children.
Oh,
They,
okay.
they hump your leg for some reason. At least that's what it looks like. Though honestly, now that I think about it, it really looks more like a child grasping at an adult for help or something,
Yeah.
which is rather disturbing.
Very disturbing messages here. Why did you have to go to that one random teacher's house? I like, what was special about him?
I don't know. Maybe it was like a lessons teacher or something.
Yeah. And then, like, I know you have to go through the house because it's the only way to bypass the broken parts of the street. But yeah, like, honestly, I was getting really frustrated by how many of the streets were just like dead ends near the beginning of the game because you couldn't see a goddamn thing. You're getting mauled to death by dogs every 5 feet, and then it would just be a dead end. And we're like, oh no, a dead end. I go to turn around, and all the dogs that were chasing me would catch up and kill me.
Mm. I
Yeah.
do like that, at least on the map, when you did reach a dead end, it marked it out as that's a dead end. So that
Yeah,
I
that was nice.
appreciated,
It
you
reminded
know.
me of not like of Metroid style games, not of Metroid itself, but it was kind of like that, where it was, exploration and you had the map and it would mark things on the map for you. More like Zero Mission or Fusion than one of the classics.
Mhm.
But the constant deaths made exploration a little bit of a chore because it would just load you at your last save, which could sometimes be like half an hour ago. But then, like, it was really generous with the save points after the school. But before the school, it was just like you get one save point. It's in the cafe.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely an example of like early game hell.
Yeah, and then like once you get past the school, the rest of the game is honestly not that difficult. And I don't know, maybe on easy mode, none of it's that difficult. But
Mhm.
the school was really frustrating for me. Like just getting there, getting in, getting mauled by the children every 5 seconds.
I
But
could I could probably agree with you on that list. Like as far as like the school, I felt like I was there like just way lot longer than I was in any other location for
I
sure.
feel like you said, the opening part of town is the biggest part of town. That like they were very ambitious with the school. It took them too long, and then they realized they had to make all the other levels of the game
Mhm.
smaller.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, because Augustine, you've obviously played this game more than once, I'm sure. And
Hmm.
for those of us that are familiar with this game, like the purpose of that is to like you play it. Basically, this game was the purpose was to play it more than once, so that way you can get all the Easter eggs and all that too. And then on top of that, I guess get the 10-star rating with like the impossible, not
Yeah.
impossible.
What
Obviously,
rating
people have
did
beat it,
what rating did
but
everyone get, by the way? Because it grades you at the end. I got a really bad one.
I think I got like a 6 or something. But I don't play for the stars because sometimes it seems rather random what you'll get.
I got
Mhm.
4.6. But I think it's because I left the damn thing on while I went to do something, and then it had my playtime as like 12 hours. So like
That's probably it.
I don't know if it grades you on playtime, but I'm like, oh damn, that's probably gonna kind of get
it
like by
it,
the time
it
It
I
does. It does.
It does. It does. Because there was one, like I said, after I beat the game, I just wanted to get like other people's perspective on it. And then this one guy, his channel is called The Completionist, so he was
oh, I love
talking
that
about,
guy. He's great.
yeah, he was talking about like, you had to do all of this, and this just to get like the full like 10 out of 10 for like the really hard version or whatever. And he was
Hmm.
saying like I felt like such anxiety because just wasting a few seconds with these like tank controls can like fuck up and then you have to like just start over again. And you only get two saves apparently.
Oh my god.
You only get 2
That's actually
saves,
kind
that's
of
it,
generous.
and
There are other games that don't allow you to save if you want to get the
I
perfect
hate
rating
that
in
like games
survival
of that
hard.
time, like Resident Evil with the fucking typewriter ribbons. I don't think I could do that. Like I save so much because I'm so terrified of losing progress. I had 60 saves by the end of this game.
Yeah, you're better off playing on an emulator where you can just save
And
to the
I'll
appropriate spot.
save and then not be sure if I saved and then save again. Like that's my style.
Yeah, well, I just say that as far as Resident Evil goes, if you're careful, you'll have more typewriter ribbons than you'd think by the end.
I know, but that's what you said about the bullets too when I was running out of those. So.
Maybe you're using you like told you earlier. You shouldn't use any on the when you're out in the city. You should just run
Well, I
from
tried
everything.
not to, but the monkey men, you gotta
No,
put
the
them down.
monkey men put them down. We use the shotgun, but everything
Oh,
else,
the
like the air
shotgun. I wanted to
screamers.
save my shells for bosses.
Oh, the right by the end of the game, you're gonna just want to use their rifle on the bosses.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
yeah, I ended
I
up
beat the final boss
using
with a shotgun. The rifle, like I used up all my rifle rounds on the moth and nothing happened. So I don't know. Rifle, my least favorite weapon.
So I sent some pictures of the alpha and the beta versions of the Grey Children. Do you think these would have been better designs? Or what do you think?
Uh,
Do you think maybe they should have had more variations?
well, like honestly, are these renders or are these what the in-game models would have
This
been
is what
able?
they would have looked like in game.
Because I don't know if the PS1 could have handled this level of detail of the beta ones at
I'm
least.
sure they would have been a little bit more pixelated, but
Because
the
like they were
general
just like
design,
gray blobs for me, like those weird little gray blobs.
I
And granted,
mean,
it's so dark you can't see anything anyway.
yeah, that's true.
mhm. I wasn't particularly concerned with how the demons or monsters looked. I was just concerned of, like, not
Not dying.
Well, like I said,
Um,
it's like the fighting polygon team from Smash Brothers. Like it's except they've got flesh tone instead of purple. It's like it's just kind of abstract shapes are attacking you. And I think like they use their polygon budget mainly on Harry and then most of the rest of it on the environment. And then they had like, you know, maybe 50 tries left to try and model all of the monsters.
yeah, I suppose so. There was only one monster that I thought was a little cute, and that was the larval stalkers, which are the little invisible children
Oh yeah,
in
what
the
was their
school.
deal?
So originally they were actually actual characters. They wouldn't try to kill you, but you could harm them. You could kill
Mm,
them. They were actual physical creatures.
Why would
But
you do
then,
that?
well, then they decided that it wasn't really in Harry's character to harm something that wasn't going to attack him. So they just made them little ghost fellows who you can't hurt.
yeah, it was still creepy, like, fuck.
Well, they're creepy until you realize they don't do anything, and then you're like, oh, they're a little cute.
Yeah,
They're
they're
like these
kooky,
little fellas.
mysterious, and spooky.
Yeah, I guess they're representing the children. But let me show you what the beta model was, where they didn't harm you.
Mhm.
They're a little bit more disturbing, but they weren't going to hurt you. So give me a sec.
Did you ever play Psychonauts, Augustine?
Yes, I did.
This game reminded me of Psychonauts, especially the hospital part of
Well,
Psychonauts.
in what way does it remind you of
Well,
Psychonauts?
the hospital, the abandoned hospital where the patients are still hanging out, and then especially, did you play the part of Psychonauts in what's her name, Mina, the girl, Mila, where you go inside of her mind and you can go into her vault of like repressed memories, and there's
Oh,
just
where
like
you
an
go to the
orphanage
disco
burning down.
level. Yeah, the disco level, and you find out her tragic backstory.
Yeah, where like the orphanage burned down and all the orphans died, and you see like their silhouettes like screaming. That
Yeah, that was a pretty disturbing moment in Psychonauts. There's a lot of disturbing moments in
I know.
Psychonauts.
But like a lot of this game kind of reminded me of it. But at least Psychonauts was meant to be a simplistic, cartoony look, and this game just had to be simplistic because of the limitations.
They
Yeah, I
look like
mean,
little pigs.
yeah, they do a little bit. The
I would
spine
have
is a
killed
little
those guys
creepy,
if I saw them.
even though they don't hurt you.
I wouldn't have known that. I would have just,
Attacked indiscriminately.
yeah. But of course, I probably would have missed them like 6 times with the pipe. Like,
Yeah.
what did you learn? Like the secret pipe foo techniques?
Well, it's all about timing.
Oh, returning to
I'm
my Brady Games guide, it didn't tell me about the hammer. I had to hear it from Augustine, and he told me about it too late for me to go back and get it. So, like,
Mhm.
I'm missing items because of this guide. Like, worst guide.
Mhm.
Brady
What a
Games,
bad
thumbs
guide.
down. Gives wrong solutions to multiple puzzles, tells you to get items that you can't get yet, and then doesn't tell you about important items.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty bad.
If I could have meleeed those nurses and doctors, because they take like 6 or 7 bullets each, I would have had so many more
Yeah.
bullets.
Well, it's because the hammer's the best melee weapon in the game. So yeah, you would have been way better off using that on the nurses, on the
Yeah.
puppet nurses.
Oh, those
Yeah, I
nurses.
hated
Yeah,
that
it's
it was
unfortunate.
all on the on the timing of it, because I did try to use what did I don't even remember. Did I even grab the hammer? Because like I was trying to like follow the walkthrough, but then I was also just trying to like move forward on my own type of thing. So maybe I missed it. I thinking I did.
Oh,
Now that we're
hey,
talking about it.
when you beat the game and you get your results screen, like, do you have to restart then, or can you go back to the title?
I think you're given the option for next fear, which is like the new
Yeah,
game
it
plus.
should
Oh,
be.
I didn't get any options. It just went to the results screen, and no button I hit would take me out of it.
Hmm.
Huh.
Because
Yeah, I don't recall.
I didn't want to restart because I'm like, what if I lose my progress? But
Right. No, I forgot what button because I feel what you're saying, Connor, because I feel like I was trying to hit a button and it wasn't continuing, but then it did. I can't remember now which button I hit to get like the next fair thing. I'm
I
not
see.
sure
Because
now.
I left the thing running. Let me press a bunch of buttons right now and see what happens.
Okay.
Press a bunch of you continue to discuss. Continue to discuss.
See, there's a little parasite looking thing on the nurse and the doc.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought they were infected by the same thing that was inside Sybil,
Yeah,
Right.
they are the same thing.
but you can't use the goo on them, the spooky goo.
So that's what I'm confused on. Were those supposed to be people who were infested with the parasite, or are they also monsters spawned from Silent Hill? I'm unsure on that.
Well,
I
like you
don't
say,
know.
spawned from Silent Hill, but that's only in the sequels that the town actually has anything weird with it. It's all that girl in this game, right?
Yeah.
Well, ostensibly, but the cult's definitely already shown to be influencing the town in a lot of ways. And then in the sequels, it's shown that the town is totally malevolent. Like it exists in different dimensions. So you've got like the regular Silent Hill, which people live in. It's like an
Mm-hmm.
actual populated town. Then you've
Mm-hmm.
got Fog World, Other World, and then occasionally other realities.
Wait, do people live there? Because we've never saw any people.
No, in this game that you have no idea what's going on. But in the sequels, it's shown that there is a plane of reality where people actually live in the town, and it's just a regular town.
And it's just, is everybody dead? Do they come back later? Or?
You mean in this game?
Yeah,
No, this
yeah.
No.
game you're in another reality.
Mm.
So Silent Hill is still a resort town, right? But you were teleported to the fog world originally.
Okay, so I hit start and it did it, and now it's showing me a gas canister, a chainsaw, and the summoning stone, and
Oh, well,
another thing. Are those like items I can only get on the new game plus?
yeah,
Is the
Yes.
chainsaw good?
it's kind of
Huh.
slow, but yeah, you can destroy enemies with it. Yeah. And the channeling stone is for the UFO ending, and when you get UFO, you unlock the a laser gun.
Wait, I hit it.
Apparently, though, if you lose or if you like don't get a 10 out of 10 or whatever, at least this is what the completionist was saying. Like it will like go away too. The laser thing.
Wait, so
He was saying something like that.
I hit that it
Hmm.
was okay to save, but now I'm just back to my loading screen. So wait, what now?
Well, then I guess you would just start a new game,
Do
right?
I? Is that how I do the next one? Because I've got Child's Room as my last save to load, but that was where I was before.
So you know what's interesting? Every time you beat the game, I think this is also true for Silent Hill 3, but I don't know about 2. Every time you
Mhm.
beat the game, you actually can multiply how many bullets there are in the game up to 6.
Yes.
Up to 6.
Hmm. So that's the added feature. Once you beat the game, you can, yeah,
So
that's correct.
wait. So how do I start the new game plus? I'm just over here in my save
You
slot.
you go into next fear.
I That's not an option here. Shit, did I miss it?
Maybe you have to replay the final boss. I'm not sure. Also, interesting thing, if you get the good plus ending, Jodie Mason, Harry's wife from the intro, is
Mhm.
replaced with Sybil in the opening cutscene
Really?
to reflect the ending.
Wait, how does that reflect the ending? Isn't that before
Well,
anything
because
happens?
good. Well, yeah, no, I mean, because good plus ending recreates that scene with his wife, but with Sybil. And so in the
Mhm.
opening cutscene, they decided, okay, well now Sybil's in it, which is unusual because it implies like weird time travel stuff. But yeah, whatever. But yeah,
Doesn't.
did anybody here feel bad that well, I think I mentioned this to Jessica, or I don't remember who I mentioned it to earlier, but apparently the original canon ending of the game was Sybil dying.
I mean, that kind of makes sense because if you really think about it, like, how is Harry supposed to know to use that liquid? First
Yeah,
off, to
on
pick it
Sybil.
up and then to use it on Sybil. So that actually makes sense. Because when I was doing the walkthrough, it's like you have an option to either kill Sybil or let her live. So I was like, well, fuck, I'm gonna let her live if I have that option, you know?
Yeah, but you needed to go out of your way to get a chemical,
Mhm.
and you wouldn't know what it does at the time because he only Harry would only knows at the end. Well,
Oh yeah,
ostensibly he would
I
only
just saw
know because
Sybil in the
Coffin
cutscene
throws
there.
it. Yeah.
So she's there when they find the baby?
Well, I guess it's supposed to be when you find the new baby. I don't
Mm.
know. It's kind
I'm
of weird.
curious about the relationship between Sybil and whatever that woman's name is in the movie. Like, is there implied romance there too?
Wait, which woman?
The Harry Mason woman in the movie.
Harry Mason
Uh,
woman.
wait, what are you
Oh,
talking about?
oh.
The one who
You're talking
Harry
about the
is.
movie?
Yeah, in the movie, is Sybil still like flirting with the main character?
I don't think so. I remember not liking Sybil that much in the movie. She doesn't
Mm.
really do much.
She
She
doesn't do
mostly
much in
just
the
yells a
game.
lot. Yeah, but at least she's not yelling,
Yeah.
at the main character.
And it's like she's actually actively harmful to Harry because she tries to kill him. So,
Well, she was possessed at the time. I
oh, I
can't
wanted
blame
to
her
talk
for
about this
that.
because I don't know if the Brady Games guide was lying to me again. It told me I had to make sure that Sybil used up all of her bullets before I threw the goo at her.
No,
I
it was
don't remember
I
that being
it
the case.
Oh my gosh, I was
no.
running around getting like trying to dodge bullets. I used up all of my health doing that because a single shot from her takes you down to red. And
Just
then I
straight you're just supposed to straight up throw it
and
at
then
her.
it said to let her strangle you and then use the goo, but you can't use the goo while you're getting strangled. So like
I almost feel
So
like something was happening behind the scenes and this guy just made the
I feel
worst
like the
guide
Brady game
possible on
the Brady
purpose.
Games guide
maybe
was
he was
trying to
just
kill me because
trolling. He's just trolling is what this sounds like.
I
Yeah, it
didn't have
really
any
does because you
health
don't have
at
to
the
do
end of
any
the
of that.
thing. So I could have just automatically won that whole fight instead of running around getting shot by Sybil over and over again, and then I would have had enough health to tank the boss at the end.
Well, okay, so in the walkthrough that I was using, it said to keep like shooting at her while she's shooting at you, and then it said after she throws down her gun, let her get close enough to you, then use the liquid.
Okay, so you do have to make her use up all her bullets.
And it's essentially yes.
So that
But I
was the
think it's
Brady
more
game lying to me.
I think the way he wrote that is incorrect. I think it's just a matter of you have to like damage her enough for her to just like throw her gun to
Oh
be
no,
like,
because I
fuck
didn't hurt
this.
her at all, and she threw her gun away. She just throws her gun away when she's fired enough times, I think.
Oh, okay. I was shooting at her.
Did she manage to shoot you? Because one single hit from her wipes out like almost all your health.
Yeah, she managed to shoot me. But again, I was playing on easy, so I don't want to take that into like I don't want that to like be a comparison between like our plays in the sense of like losing health because I was on easy. So
Yeah, because like that lightning, I was in yellow, and the lightning from the final boss still killed me. I thought I was gonna be okay at yellow, but no, you got to be green. And also, can we talk about how the health is just like stoplight colors and not any indication of really how much you have left? Like you can be red and get mauled by a monkey man and still be okay sometimes, but then you can be
right.
yellow and get mauled by a monkey man and die.
I feel like the uncertainty was meant to be part of the horror because you're never really sure when you'll go down. But
At
yeah, as
certain
far as
points, they're just
gameplay, it
frustrating.
is frustrating. Yeah.
Like sometimes it's like, oh, the frustration adds to the horror, and other times it's like, no, that's just dumb.
No, it's just yeah. I feel that. And then on top of that too, like I felt like, and again, maybe just because I was playing on easy, I felt like there was really no distinction between the first aid kit and the health potion or the
I
health drink.
think the potion gave you a little bit less.
Yeah, the potion gives a little, and then the medical kit will give you way more.
Because sometimes
No,
I'd go from red to green on just a potion, and sometimes I'd go from red to yellow on a potion. So there's like different levels of red and yellow and green.
okay. Well, I thought that that was going to be the case, but I felt like every time I took a health drink, it just went to green, regardless if I was at yellow or red. So again, it might just because I was playing
Yeah,
easy.
maybe you never got to deep red because you're playing on easy and nothing did enough damage. You were always on
Mm,
light red. I don't know. The
that
colors
could
don't
be the
change. I
case.
just mean the amount in the red that you were.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fair, I guess.
The
I don't know.
chicken monster.
Yeah, the unused chicken monster, which Masahiro Ito, he did say he worked on all those unused monster designs, but he didn't want to go into any more detail on Twitter about it. But I think the chicken was meant to be a boss, and it got cut for time. I do like the ostrich quite a bit, though. Like the headless ostrich with the weird tongue. There's also a stingray, apparently, or something. And a frog, which just looks like, I don't know, like its head has been split in two. Yeah, lots of animals in this game, which isn't really brought up in the sequels,
Mhm.
aside from the dogs. The dogs are in every game. Oh, no, I'm wrong. They're not in Silent Hill 2.
So are they all supposed to be just things that Alessa likes or things she's scared of, or
Things she was scared of,
but she
or things
likes
she
the
liked,
butterflies.
or things she liked. They were just things that were important to her, basically, in some way.
And then the
Because
book,
Probably just things that are affecting her overall.
I think there are more things she's like imagining, because the idea is that she fell into the coma, right? Well, not a coma, but she's like, injured from the
Mhm.
fire that happened. And
Right.
so the other world and the fog world in this game are being influenced by her. Whereas in the sequels, the other world is usually being influenced by the psyche of the main character.
Mm.
but she can also influence the real world because the monsters show up there too.
Well, the fog world isn't the real world either.
It's not?
No,
No, apparently
it's one
not.
layer of reality. So there's the town, which is just our regular world where people live and they have no idea about anything
Wait,
else.
so everybody's still there in the regular town? Not
Yeah,
everybody
you're in
just.
another dimension. You're in an alternate dimension version of the town.
I
It's like
kind of wish
Twilight
the
Zone.
game had told us that.
Well, the game leaves it open because it's, trying to be mysterious.
So I
But
thought everyone was just dead. Like I thought that Alyssa just wiped them all out.
well, like I said, that's a valid interpretation of the first game. But once you get the sequels into account, there are
Mhm.
multiple levels of reality.
So is
Yeah.
everyone okay in the school? The book you find that says in the most matter-of-fact scientific way. Sometimes when teenage girls hallucinate, all the things they think of come to life. You know, and it's just like, oh
Uh,
yeah, studies have shown this. Okay, great. That's like
Wonderful.
that's the first explanation we get for what's going on, and it's kind of the only one. And like, so Alessa just made the town all weird.
Because she had psychic powers that her mother was exploiting,
Mhm.
Yeah, and
apparently.
It's
her
it's
mother wanted
interesting
the
to
powers,
well,
but
it
why?
I don't really know. I feel like that would have been nice to explain more of the again, it just kept me wanting more of
Because
like
when
of an
she
explanation.
said that Samael was going to free us of pain and suffering, it sounds like Samael's just going to come and kill everybody.
Right.
I mean, maybe. Hard to
Apocalypse.
tell.
Or
Yeah.
the coming or whatever it's called in the New Testament.
Yeah. Oh, can we talk about Nowhere for a little bit and how, like, it was just kind of reused sections from all the other levels, and you had to find like all of the different items to put on the door.
I mean, it's essentially a remix of everywhere you've gone to at that point.
Yeah, and like it was
Yeah.
fun, but I felt kind of like it was padding because I felt like the story had kind of reached its climax at the amusement park, and then you take like, an
Mm.
hour to wander around various hallways,
Yeah,
and
it should
then
have
you
been
get to the
maybe
final
like
boss.
10 minutes long, like mainly just you experiencing the atmosphere before
And it
the
was
final boss.
honestly some of the better puzzles in the game were in Nowhere, but
Yeah.
by that point I was just like, I just want to see what happens in the story,
I
and
know. I'm just like, oh my god, I'm over it. I just want to get through it and get out of it.
Yeah,
and then
maybe
like,
nowhere should have happened right before the amusement park or something.
and if
Or
I didn't
you,
have a
yeah.
walkthrough, that refrigerator I would have been really mad at. Like,
Oh my god, I that's like I was saying, like I would read ahead. I would read, but then I would like stop just to keep exploring. Yeah, I died. I didn't, and then I
and then you
went and
had to
looked
go
at
all
the
the way back to your last
walkthrough.
save.
I mean, thankfully, like, because I like to, I think I'm like you. I'm like, I like to save, but then like sometimes I think even if I'm just standing right there by the save, I'm like, did I save? I'm gonna save
Yeah.
again just in case I didn't really hit the save. So fortunately, I was already like, it wasn't too far gone when I had died. But I was like, what the fuck? Like, could you imagine like that? Like, because
What kind of monster was it? Because I didn't get to see him.
is there any other random way to die like that? Because obviously you can get killed by like the monsters coming in and attacking you, but
Oh,
is
the
there any other
octopus. The octopus can just
yeah,
randomly kill you, I think.
that was oh, if you didn't like feed it the blood
Yeah,
pack.
if you
But
didn't feed
that
it
was
the
kind of
blood.
the same monster though
Oh, I
in
didn't
the
see the monster in the fridge.
refrigerator.
Was it the octopus again?
Yeah, it was the octopus again. So is there any other? So those are the two different random ass ways to die
It
by
seems like
based off of your choice.
there's a lot of monsters in this town and a lot of weird stuff going on that seems unrelated to the cult and their activities. Like, so there's just already multiple dimensions in an evil other world, and also the cult is here. Like,
I mean, yeah, basically, if the cult weren't there, the town would still be evil. Apparently,
because I thought it was like the town was like a bigger version of the hotel from The Shining. The town was just evil, but that's not really in this game. But in the sequels, it kind of is, I think.
So the town is evil, not the like the
the
town
land
or the
itself,
people.
is cursed. Basically,
But in this game, it seems like there just happen to be a lot of evil people living here, or
Right.
like
yeah,
five.
the cult showed up and they started doing their own stuff.
So all these
Mhm.
people who are in the fog world, they were pulled from the real world into the fog world by Alessa.
Yeah, basically.
And it's like, so Lisa, because she was her nurse, and Dr. Kaufman, because he was one of the people that tortured her, I guess. And then her mother.
Who's like the current leader of that sect of the cults?
Yeah.
Because there are
Right.
apparently multiple sects. Yeah.
And I guess Harry just got pulled in because she needed Cheryl. I don't.
Right.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so there is a
But
real
then how
Silent
does
Hill somewhere.
how does Sybil come into the
Oh,
just because
yeah.
she's
Oh,
looking for
she was
Kaufman? Was
there at
that
the
it?
time. I think it's just that she was there near Harry and Cheryl when
Well, because
the
it
crash
seemed like you
happened.
had to be unconscious to get pulled into this world because, like, Harry was in the car wreck, and then Doctor Kaufman was just like, I took a nap in my office, and then Lisa was asleep too. So it seems like you had to be asleep to get pulled in, but like I guess only 4 people were sleeping in the entire town of Silent Hill, and Sybil, I guess, like crashed her motorcycle and fell asleep. I didn't get that she crashed her motorcycle, but online says that happened.
It probably happened off screen, maybe
Off
after
screen
Harry.
A
then,
lot of
yeah.
stuff happens off screen in this story.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, basically because Harry doesn't really influence the plot much at all, aside from getting the
Well, for
seals
some
or whatever.
reason, Dahlia needed him to stand in a place and hold a thing. It seems like she could have, because like she shows up there right after he does, so it's not like she was the only, like she
I
couldn't have gotten
feel
caught.
like Dahlia didn't want to endanger her own life because of the monsters.
Yeah, and then
Because
Dahlia
Right.
apparently she runs the antique shop. I didn't get that, but apparently that's supposed to be her store.
it's probably like a cover or something. But yeah, because unlike the sequels, the monsters look different to people. Like in Silent Hill 2, the town looks different to everybody. Whereas
Mm.
in this one, everybody sees the same things because they're all
Well,
inside of Alessa's version of the town.
do we know they're all seeing the same things? Because we only see Harry's perspective, and nobody seems to be reacting the way they should to what's going on.
I think
feel
that's
like
a fair
yeah,
point
that's like yeah, I think
to
you have a
point
good
out.
point there.
And like Sybil doesn't see anything. Sybil's just like, "You're just tired, Harry."
Oh wait, Kaufman definitely saw the same thing Harry saw though.
Yeah.
Well, he saw something that tried to attack him, but maybe he saw it as a different
I
monster.
was just
Oh, that's
getting
a
the
good point.
impression.
I think
Oh,
like
go
the
ahead.
monsters are all the same as far as like they attack you and stuff, and
Because
maybe they just look
Kaufman's
different.
incredibly underwhelmed reaction to everything going on. It's like, we can't stand around flapping our gums. Just like,
That was such like an old person thing to say. I was like, the
I mean, he
fuck?
is kind of old. I think he's like
I
Kaufman
in
is
his
know,
50s or
but
something at that
nobody
point.
looks old. Even Dahlia, like they gave her gray hair, but she kind of just has like a normal.
Dolly is not even that old. She's like 40.
Oh,
oh, she didn't look
She's
40.
just is aged really badly.
Well, you should
but
be
like
if you're an evil
in
cult
the
leader.
CG movie, I think it's pretty clear she has the same body as all the other women, but they gave her like drag queen makeup.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, and then
Sure.
like my god, the shot of Alessa like on the bed in the final cutscene, that was weird. Like I feel like I don't know what was going on with that.
In the final cut, what do you mean?
In
Like
the
You mean
final
when she's
cutscene,
a
when
little
everybody's like giving you a thumbs up, and we see Alessa, and it's like it's her teenage Alessa like on the bed with like very visible cleavage, like smiling and giving like a thumbs up.
don't those credits essentially just kind of try to show it off like it's a movie?
Well, everybody's like giving the thumbs up and waving at the camera, but it's
the
like
bloopers. Okay, I get what you're
yeah.
saying.
I'm getting like kind of a come hither look from Alessa, and I'm like, isn't she like 14? What the hell is this?
All
Well,
right.
you
Well,
all said like
I didn't really I just chalked it up to blooper comedy movie thing.
Ah, yeah. And then whole ending sequence. I mean, are we ready for our final thoughts?
I mean,
Yeah. Go
I
ahead,
was gonna
Jessica.
just add that, like, I felt like, because bringing in all the characters, I still felt like I think Lisa has always been like dead, but just stuck in like in the reality for that long until like Alessa's what is it called business, I guess, ghostly business was done, so she's also
Yeah.
stuck, but I
And
don't I don't think she was alive actually. That's just me though. I could be completely wrong. Like she was
so the
just never
broken
alive in the
in the game, the broken wheelchair we see everywhere. That's Alessa's, right?
Probably.
So wherever we see the broken wheelchair, she's physically been there.
Well, I don't think she's been physically everywhere in the town.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
we only see the wheelchair like twice, like in the alleyway and then in the school. Oh, and then in the hospital, I think. But
That was a good freaky opening because again, I had never played survival horror game before. I guess like that camera shifting, when you're walking through the
Mhm.
alleyway and it's shifting like your
Like
position of
Harry's
where you're
drunk.
moving. I know. I was like, at first, I was like, at first, like when you changed camera position, I thought it was going to be like a cutscene, and I was just standing there, like,
I
well,
mean,
and then I moved, and then I was like, oh, I'm still moving as
So,
the
like,
person.
one thing I want to say is that scene where you climb up to the lighthouse. I thought I was in a cutscene when we got to the part with the glowy thing, so I didn't move for a second. I'm like, oh wait, no, this is in game because like that was the best looking part of the game. Probably because they didn't need to render anything except like a glowy symbol.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
yeah,
For
I
sure.
think I like about fixed camera angles is that it gives the impression that that something is watching the main character.
Right.
And some survival horror games have used that to their advantage.
Like Night Trap.
Well, not Night Trap. Better survival horror games have used it to their advantage, where it turns out that you actually are watching from the perspective of a monster at certain points, like hunting the main character.
Mm.
Did that happen in Resident Evil 4?
I don't recall that. Well,
There
let me
wasn't a
think.
fixed camera, but I think I remember a first person part where like the monster runs at Leon.
I don't remember, but maybe that game did a lot of things.
That the parasites in that game, the Silent Hill ones, kind of reminded me of that.
Of Las Plagas from
Yes, Las
SH4.
Plagas. Yeah.
It's
No,
possible.
RE4.
Yeah. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. It's not out of the realm of possibility that it might have been a reference.
Yeah.
Probably not though, because the parasites aren't like a big thing in Silent Hill apart from this game.
Because like RE4 was my only, and it's a stretch to call that survival horror, but it is one of the Resident Evil games. But it was my only like horror game that I'd really played all the way through before this.
Yeah, RE4 is more action horror. I would still include it as survival horror just because there are so many things in it that are still survival horror. But just the fact the areas are so open and you fight so many enemies, it really does come off more as action horror.
And then Leon with his funny jokes all the time.
Yeah, they should put Leon in Silent Hill. Just do a Capcom crossover.
Yeah.
That'll be Resident Evil 9.
Gosh, I mean, honestly, just let Capcom have all of Konami's franchises. They'll do a like they didn't do great on like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. People didn't like that, but at least they made a game and not a pachinko machine.
Mhm.
You could put Pyramid Head in the next Marvel versus Capcom.
God, I really kind of want to play Silent Hill 2 now because I'm like, what is Pyramid Head's deal? Like, got a pyramid for a head, likes to stab nurses. That's all I got.
He's an incredibly memorable monster for what he does in that game. And also I love his introduction. It's very subtle. You might even miss him.
Oh no, like
Mm.
in Halloween, how Mike Myers is just sometimes in the background of scenes.
Yep, that's basically how Pyramid Head's introduced. He's just in the background, no fanfare, no nothing, no cutscene.
No creepy music to
No
indicate that
creepy
he's
music.
there.
It's just in the dark and you may or may not see him.
I mean,
Oh
it's like
my
there's a
God.
case
See, I
to
think
be
that's
made.
I need the musical cue. I'm like, even if that'll freak me out, I think that just freaks me out even more that there is no musical cue, that there's
Yeah.
something there.
Like,
Oh
there's
my
a case to
goodness.
be made for or against the music because, like, you do have a warning whenever monsters appear in Silent Hill, but
Well, you
also
can actually turn off the warning too
I don't want to do
in the
that.
options menu.
No.
Right, Connor, I'm with you. Like, I don't want to make this more difficult
But then, like,
than it
in the
already
sewer,
was.
I got absolutely no warning. Stuff would just attack me randomly.
They're probably just too fast. They're like, yeah.
Those little orange guys
yeah.
who they're not even worth shooting. Just run past them. But I missed like handgun pickups and health pickups because I couldn't stop because those orange guys were coming to kill me
Orange?
in the sewer.
My Were they orange? I thought they were green. Are we talking about the same? Here, can we pull up a
Yeah, let's
clip?
pull up the sewer guys. One sec.
Yeah.
Let's look up the sewer monster.
Oh no, not the ones where you're going to the amusement park. Those guys, not the green guys that come down from the ceiling.
Oh, okay. I was like, aren't they green in the sewer? Right. We're
Yeah, the
Okay,
second
okay.
sewer that you're in. Not the first sewer.
Okay. I was like, green. Okay. We're talking about different time.
Yeah, different
Alright.
sewer monsters because there's two sewer sections because apparently that is the way to get anywhere in Silent Hill. The gigantic sewer that's big enough for like 3 people standing on each other's shoulders to walk through.
Uh,
I mean, let's check it out.
are you pulling it up?
Yeah, I'm looking it up.
Yeah, I'm talking about those little. They look like the monkey men but smaller. You know what I'm talking about, right? This from the second sewer section.
Pyramid Head.
God,
That's
Pyramid
just
Head.
that's just such like a random ass like monster.
Well, I feel like because like in the Friday the
just-
13th movies, it's not until the second one where like Jason shows up, and I feel like Pyramid Head is the Jason of the Silent Hill series. He shows up in the second one and he kind of dominates it.
That's fair. I think that's a fair assumption.
Yeah. And then Jason doesn't even get his hockey mask until the third one.
Yeah. Oddly enough, Pyramid
Mhm.
Head is only really an enemy in the second game. You don't fight him in any other game. Any of
He's
the
got a
mainline games
cameo
anyway.
in Origins, apparently. According to Yahtzee, he wanders
No,
by
it's
the camera for a second.
no, it's Butcher. It's a different enemy.
Oh, it's a different enemy. I see.
Yeah, it's called the Butcher. Doesn't wear a pyramid head.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So I'm like looking at random images on Google Image for like Silent Hill monsters, and like one of them looks like, and I'm putting it in chat. Like I feel like one looks like the monster in Pan's Labyrinth, the white thing, the lurker. I'm just
kinda
curious,
does,
which
like
came out first, this
Oh,
game or
definitely
that
this.
movie?
Pan's Labyrinth was in the mid 2000s.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, that was
Wait, what-
2006.
What game is this dude from?
I don't know. I just saw it and I was like, "What Pan's Labyrinth monster?"
Oh, that one's from Silent Hill Homecoming.
Oh, so maybe it was Pan's Labyrinth first.
Oh,
But it's like
okay.
it's a similar aesthetic.
Homecoming
Also-
came out in 08, yeah.
So I want to say, imagine you're walking down an alleyway, and you just see. I just sent a picture. You just see this: a man flail hanging from a thing. You just go,
Right.
"What's this?" And then you run into
This
a
is
cop.
not a dream.
You run into a cop
Remember?
5 minutes later, and you're like, "Oh yeah, no, I didn't see anything unusual. You see my daughter anywhere?"
Remember when he's like, "This is not a dream"?
Yeah, but it kind of was. No.
I mean, it kind of was because he died in it.
And then when he
like,
thinks maybe it is a dream. But yeah, and
Right.
then like, so did Sybil find him in front of this dead body, and then like not have any questions?
Right?
I'm
like
not sure. Maybe he just woke up in the cafe.
And
Maybe
who
she found
is
him there.
this? Is this Alyssa?
What is?
The
Oh no,
dead
we see other
corpse?
bodies that are like flailed
No,
like
that's just like a random corpse, basically.
Why
Because
are people getting
Alessa.
flayed and hung from places?
Well, I don't think they were real people. I think that's just a monster.
the nightmare.
Yeah.
Probably.
But yeah, I can't find the monster you're talking about. The orange one.
The
I
orange ones in
found the
second-
hanged scratchers, which are the green reptile-looking things.
No,
you
not
fight in the
those dudes.
sewers.
The dudes from
Yeah,
the
yeah.
second part of the sewer. Let me see here. If I go on the Silent Hill wiki, will they be there? What's this? What's the second sewer called? Sewer to amusement park.
Probably.
Sewer to amusement park. God, that amusement park. I was excited for like freaky amusement park, and then it was kind of underwhelming.
It's pretty short. Yeah.
It was like a carousel, and you say we go back there in Silent Hill 3.
Yes, we do. It's you start the game off there in another nightmare sequence, and then you go back there near the end of the game.
If I type in just sewer, will that get it for me? Sewer. Sewer monster, no. Sewer fairy? No. Okay, let's see here. Because I'm talking about the part that takes you to the amusement park. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Connecting to amusement park, Silent Hill system. Enter the section of the sewers. Okay, tell me about the monsters, you silly wiki you.
I like how on the wiki they have a page devoted just to Monster Sybil, and it's just Sybil with red eyes.
Oh, they're the mumblers. Augustine, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
Mumblers.
the Mumblers. That's who you're talking about.
Yeah, they're little orange dudes. I thought they were only in the European version replacing the kids, the mumblers, but I guess the mumblers are also the dudes in the second sewer.
Mm.
But you have
Yeah,
the little
but
orange dudes with claw hands.
yeah, what about the Mumblers though?
Oh, just I was being chased by so many of them in that section, and it didn't like play the warning music when they showed up that I couldn't stop and get the pickups. They were just ready to kill me. And I said that a while ago, and Jessica was like, "What orange dudes?" So that's why we spent the last
Okay.
20 minutes looking for the mumblers.
Yeah, they're all. It's also the monster that attacked Kaufman.
Yeah.
The little
Oh,
Mumbler
Kaufman.
fellas.
See, I get them mixed up with the ape men because they look kind of similar to me. But like
see that I agree with you on that. Like you can't really tell between like
everything's just shapes, you know.
Yeah, they look a lot more defined in the sequels.
I thought that are they the only ones to come back?
Who?
You said only one monster came back in the sequels.
No, just the insects, the creeper, or whatever they're called.
Oh yeah. So
Just
the mumblers aren't
rug-
back.
No, they are not back.
Yeah. So I feel like monster design, like there were a lot of cool ideas, but the PS1 just it wasn't there technically to show us these monsters. So the
Mhm.
monsters in the game themselves are
No,
not.
but just think, just 2.5 years later, they came out with Silent Hill 2, and the graphics still look great for a PS2 title, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, this is impressive for a PS1 title, honestly. Like you said, it's fully rendered in real time. It's just it's so handicapped by the fact that it couldn't show you very many polygons at once. And clearly the quote unquote polygon budget went into the environment and the main character and not into the monsters.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's better to make the protagonist actually look good, I suppose.
Yeah. For our listeners who might need a very basic description, when I say polygons, I usually it's triangles, but a 3D system can show however many shapes on screen at once and no more. And so when you make a 3D model, it's really consisting of a bunch of different 2D shapes put together. So if you use a lot of shapes to make one model, then you run out of shapes to use on other things. And that's why a lot of older 3D games have fog or darkness or some reason you can't see very far into the distance because there's a limit to how much the system could actually show you at once. Superman 64.
Yeah, like I think, for example, the PlayStation 2 could do millions of polygons at one time, but that was under like conditions that no game would ever run under.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was
Or like
actually
that
much
video
fewer.
you sent me about Crash Bandicoot, how they like use trickery.
They essentially hacked the system into gaining way more memory than they were supposed to, or something like that.
And
Yeah, that
even
was
then,
impressive.
they deliberately obscure different parts of the level at different times so that they don't have to show you too much. But they don't just put fog there; they put like, obstacles, or they position the camera in such a way.
Yeah, but I actually think the first Crash Bandicoot still looks amazing.
It does. I actually played it for the first time, and I feel like it's what Donkey Kong 64 should have been. Like, it's very similar to Donkey Kong Country, and it I think is a perfect evolution of that formula.
Yeah, but unlike say Silent Hill, I think it has way fewer things on screen at any one
It
time,
does. It's also
which is
much
why I
much
think
brighter, so
yeah.
you can see what's going on.
Yeah, so Silent Hill went for quantity over quality, but it still looks pretty good
Yeah.
overall.
I mean, like, I really feel like the monsters are a detriment to the game because I can't tell what most of them are supposed to be. And I imagine I'm like, wow, this would be really freaky if I could tell what it was.
Right. So I think we should transition to closing thoughts.
Mhm.
So Connor, you like the design of the monsters, but you just don't like the way they're presented
Yeah. I mean,
graphically because of the system
my
limitations.
big thoughts are I had a good time with the story. I like by the end where you were like, I'm gonna go back to the lighthouse. That scene was, I think, the perfect scene. It had like the ominous music and the big flashing thing and the cool camera angles. I think it was like everything that the rest of the game was trying to do was fully realized right there. And then a lot of the puzzles were pretty fun, but it kind of went on for a while and nowhere. But overall, I had a really great time with this game, except I got super frustrated at the beginning. Um, but after the beginning, I had a pretty good time.
Mhm.
And what about you, Jessica? What are your closing thoughts on Silent Hill?
Um, I can say that I think the game did its job, even though the obviously in today's standards, as far as like graphic, it's not good, but it still did its fucking job as far as like making me feel uncomfortable playing the game itself. It it was kind of like this love-hate thing where I was like I was hating it because I hated feeling uncomfortable the whole time playing it, but at the same time it was like I wanted more of the story. I wish I liked the plot itself. So I think that was a plus. Overall, it's weird. I think this is like just my love-hate relationship with horror movies, and I think anyone who just likes who wants to be scared but not like just terrified the whole time. I don't know where I'm going with that, but I liked it overall, I can say, even if it made me feel uncomfortable. So, yeah.
Well, one thing I can say is if you wanted more story out of Silent Hill 2 has it like everything is story. There's
Mhm,
everything in that game has something to do with the plot in some way.
mhm,
And you get to know way more characters in depth. So I think you'll enjoy Silent Hill 2 a lot more. It's also a much more personal story.
mhm.
Everything relates back to James Sunderland and the relationship with his wife.
Right.
Yeah. Well, as for my thoughts on this game, I really do love it quite a bit. I think it's one of the better PS1 games. One of the more memorable ones, definitely. It was a great competitor with Resident Evil, which I also love, but for different reasons. Um, so yeah, I'd say it's not the. I wouldn't say it's the best Silent Hill title. Is and not even the best one that Team Silent made. But I think it's still a really impressive debut, especially knowing the backstory behind the how inexperienced everybody on the team was. I think some of the ideas that were in this game were better realized in Siren, as far as like foggy, creepy town. But yeah, I definitely recommend people try Silent Hill 1. Just, keep in mind that it was 1999 and it's a PS1 title. And so it's not going to look amazing, though unlike Connor, I do think that it adds to the atmosphere just how janky everything is. It's almost kind of like um maybe got this feeling because I played it when I was younger, but more just the idea of like you shouldn't be playing this game in some ways, because it's so weird and creepy.
Mhm.
And I mean, Jessica, you were creeped out and you were playing on easy, so that means they did something right if the
Honestly,
atmosphere shone through.
I should have played on easy because this game is not about the gameplay. It's about the story. It's like how there's very easy mode on Death Stranding
Yeah, I mean, sure.
because the actual game is just walking around.
I mean,
I guess
I'm never gonna say, yo, you're not a real fan if you didn't play on super hard mode for the fucking survival horror
I
game.
don't even want to touch hard mode because
right.
normal mode was tough enough for me.
No, Silent Hill is better as an experience, so I would say just yeah, if you need to play it on easy, it's not a big deal.
I preferred this game to the haunted maze at Universal Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah, Silent Hill is not Devil May Cry. You don't need to play it on Dante Must Die, Harry Must Die difficulty or
I
some shit.
have been personally chased by Pyramid Head and evil nurses, so I feel like I have a little bit more practical experience with being in Silent Hill than you two.
I suppose you do.
I guess the only criticisms I do have is, I mean, and again, I know you said it was like in relation to the tank, like it's just like a survival horror game thing, but like that was just like it just made it more difficult to move around.
The
Like that
tank
was just like
controls.
straight up annoying. Like when I first like turned it on and everything, it legit took me like 30 minutes to figure out how the fuck to move and to like shoot my gun or, use my knife or whatever the case
it's
may be. That was
legitimately
annoying.
daunting. Legitimately daunting to try and figure out tank controls, and that is just how 3D 3D games
Mhm.
were for a while back then. But like Mario 64 came out 3 years before this, and it was maybe not the first, but one of the first games to have controls like non-tank controls. I don't know what exactly the word is for that.
Right.
Yeah. And then like other games didn't take heart. Like Rascal still had tank controls, and Lara Croft Tomb Raider. That was just how they did 3D games for a while, and I'm
Mhm.
amazed that anyone ever thought that was acceptable. But like, if you think about it, a first person shooter has that exact same control scheme. It's just because the camera moves with you and is always from your perspective. It's not as jarring and confusing.
Mhm. For sure.
And
And
if
I
you use
think
a
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you use a control stick, like if you have a DualShock hooked up and it's compatible, I don't know. It's like it's so much easier because you don't have to hit like the right button and the forward button at the same time. You can just kind of go diagonal.
Right. And I think just one more criticism I do have about the game, even though, again, I wanted more of the story, I just felt like certain things, like we talked about earlier, like by the time we get to like the amusement park, it just already felt like, okay, the climactic, and then now we're just sunken back into a non-climactic.
Yeah.
Like just the way that
Puzzle.
we're getting bits of the story felt like the pacing of it felt a little off, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nowhere should have happened before the amusement park.
And the thing is, like, nowhere is actually a pretty fun section of the game. It comes at a really bad time in terms of pacing.
It comes at the point where you're ready for the ending because of the way
Yeah.
the story was laid out.
Yeah.
And it's like it's legit some of the better puzzles. Like the doors have names on them and the keys have names, and you bring the key to the door, and it's clever, and it's none of it is as obtuse as that friggin' piano puzzle. Like that, I'm still not sure. I just looked up what keys I was supposed to hit online, and I still don't know why I was supposed to do that.
So would you have been happier had the conflict with Sybil happened at the end of Nowhere?
I think so. In fact, even like the no, yeah, that would work better if you fought Sybil at the end of Nowhere.
Yeah, that would have made I think that would have just tied it in nicely too to like, the ending of the game as well. Because it's like by the time you get to know her, it's like you're not even thinking of that. Like if you had no idea what you were doing as far as like gameplay, like if you weren't using a walkthrough and you're just like, oh yeah, I killed Sybil or whatever, and just moving on to Nowhere, and then like your whole thought is on something completely different. I think that would have just tied in a bit more nicely to the as far as like the endings too. If those were kind of like switched around, or if you added Sybil like within Nowhere, like you guys were saying.
Yeah, they could have done some fun things too. Maybe have you play as Sybil
Yeah,
for
that would have been
Nowhere instead
And
if
just
she survives.
I know it's supposed to be a spooky Nowhere place. Just please give me a map, please.
Well, I actually like the fact there's no map because it's such a what the fuck is going on thing. But I
I couldn't tell
understand the
which door
gameplay
was which.
frustration. I understand the frustration.
Yeah, like I like that some of the doors had labels that made it easier. But why did it say like
right.
68 on the door of Fagel?
I don't even know.
I don't know.
I
But so
think if
that's our
the graphics were a little tighter, like as far as like visually seeing like the different doors, yeah, that would have been like I would have been like, okay, I really don't need a map if it was just a bit more clear to like see.
like I'm all for preservation, but this game would have really benefited from like the GameCube version of Resident Evil, where they just made the graphics nicer and
Mhm.
yeah.
So
Apparently,
you would have been all for a remake
yeah, I would have been.
because Shattered Memories isn't really a remake. It's its own thing.
The game that taught us to fear ourselves, says the Guardians. I'm really scared of myself right now after playing Silent Hill. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do next.
Crazy.
But yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
recommendation from me, but you definitely play it with a walkthrough. It's not worth trying to puzzle this out on your own.
I'm just trying to imagine like if you didn't have or did the game come with a guide, I guess you were talking about?
Came with a
No,
I'm
manual.
it
guessing.
came with a
Or
manual explaining some things about the story, but that was about it. There was
oh,
no
okay.
guide.
Like, I don't think any child in like 1999 could have figured this out without like a walkthrough of some. And then Brady Games was the one that it was an unofficial guide, but it was the one that was commercially available, and it just gave the wrong answers to multiple puzzles. And it even said like, we don't know where you can use the summoning stone except for these 2 places. So it's like you don't even know how to get the secret ending, and you're writing a guide. Oh, should we mention that the secret ending?
Which one, the UFO ending?
Yeah, the UFO ending.
Yeah, sure. What about it?
Oh, it was all aliens is the secret that you find out. It's fun.
I don't think it was that the aliens are responsible. They just show up and
Well,
kidnap
Harry
you.
goes, so you're the ones responsible. Doesn't he say that when they show up?
But it doesn't even. But then okay, so the UFO endings are fun because they are essentially sequels to each other. So in Silent Hill 2, you get an ending that follows the UFO ending of the first game, and in the third game, you get a UFO ending that follows up from the
It's
UFO
like
ending of the
Harry's still
second
on the
game.
UFO in the second game.
Oh, that's cute. That's a
No,
cute way to connect it all.
he's friends with them. He became friends, and they kidnapped James.
Not
And then in the
James.
third one, James is now friends with Harry, and they're just chilling with the aliens having tea. So
All right.
it's pretty great.
I mean, it
Quite-
sounds
they're
like these
quite
are the
funny.
better endings.
Yeah, they're actually pretty good. Actually, the UFO ending of 3 ends with them just annihilating Silent Hill.
Nice.
That explains why
Because
they don't go to Silent Hill and Silent Hill 4. The
because
UFOs blew it up.
In Silent Hill 3, there's also no UFO ending in 4, so maybe that is the real ending of Silent Hill. No, in Silent Hill 3, Heather shows up and she's like, "Harry, the Silent Hill was so mean to me." And then Harry's like, "Oh no, how could they do that? Okay, I'm gonna kick their ass." And then a bunch of UFO saucers annihilate the town.
Is Heather the main character of Silent Hill 3?
Yeah, she is. She is the protagonist.
All right.
But Harry is important to the plot, so
Good
that's
for
nice.
Harry, being important. I'm glad. It seems like Silent Hill 2 just did its own thing, and then Silent Hill 3 was like, oh crap, we should actually do a sequel.
Well, I think the team actually wanted to not do a sequel to Silent Hill 1 storyline wise, but Konami was like, "Well, people want the more cult stuff, so come on, do it." And they're like, "Okay, it's fine.
I
We'll
mean,
do
I
it."
think Evil Town is way more interesting than Cult.
Yeah, I prefer the Evil Town stuff as well.
Evilton. Welcome to Evilton.
I mean, I don't have a problem with the Evil Town stuff. But like I know some people fucking hate the cult stuff.
Well,
Like they're
it's
like
like 4 people doing some vaguely defined mystical ritual that, like, from Harry's perspective, where he doesn't know or care what's going on, that's fine. But like for a whole series, I feel like eventually it's gonna collapse in on
eventually
itself.
there's not much else you can do with the cult. I agree. So it was quite I think it was sort of brave of them to branch out with the second game and go the more personal route where it's just
Mhm.
the town is feeding off people's misery.
Yeah, I have to
Mhm.
say my favorite part of the game, the part that I found like the spookiest, was when like the area changed around you in ways that it shouldn't have. Like when you try all the floors in the elevator and there's nothing on them, then you go back and there's suddenly a new elevator button, and it just like feels like the buildings are messing with you, and like you go through a
Mhm.
door and you end up somewhere you shouldn't be. That was like my favorite part of the game, just sort of the environmental creepiness, or like the
Hmm.
phone that rings even though it's not plugged in.
I think the one thing that really got me as far as a jump scare, because granted, I don't feel like there's was jump scares per se, but like the sounds, I guess, like, when you go in a room, you turn around to leave and then a sound happens or whatever.
Mhm.
But I think the one that really got me was like when you're in the nightmare world and you go to the locker again and you're expecting, right, for there's something to be in there and then there's nothing in there. It's like, okay, well, that was a waste of time. And then and then the other locker pops out. That got me pretty good. I was like, oh my God.
What, the one that's full of blood or the one with the cat?
No. The one with the cat is in normal or fog
Right.
world.
Why
And
is
then
that
the
cat in
one,
Fog World?
right, that who knows,
Yeah,
honestly.
why is there a cat at all? Is what I'm
Also, I
wondering.
just want to say that remake Sybil is like significantly less sexy than original
No,
Sybil.
no. So this is the one thing that's interesting about Chad Memories is that it actually changes a lot of things depending on how you respond to some psych evaluations. So Sybil will look completely different depending on how you answer. Do you want to see alternate Sybil?
Sure, Harry's a nerd in that scene with his little glasses.
Ironically, in the backstory, he's been sleeping around a lot.
I don't
Wow.
like that. Also, is that
Apparently.
Dr. Cowithman up there on the
Well,
top right?
yes, that's Kaufman in the. He's your
Alifman,
psychologist.
you are just hammering that in today.
He is.
Because of the way that he introduces himself. It's like, I'm
This
Dr.
is
Cowithman.
this is Sybil. If on your psyche eval you start responding in like a pervert, basically.
Oh, God.
So she actually looks more like the original Sybil.
Well, the original
Mm.
Sybil was never this sexy.
No,
Like,
she's not.
He
But
did
she's
have leather
essentially in a.
pants, which was very weird.
She is in a more sexualized version of the original Sybil's outfit,
It
and
just
she's
now occurred
blonde.
to me that they probably weren't confident in their ability to model long hair, and that's why all the girls have short hair.
Even Dahlia has
That's
short hair.
fair.
Yeah. See, now that makes sense.
Well, except for Lisa. Lisa's hair is pretty long
yeah, that's
compared to
true.
everyone else's.
Now, do you want to know something interesting? Apparently, they're actually pitching a new Shattered Memories.
Wait, I don't understand. Would it be Silent Hill 2?
It would be Shattered Memories too.
Wait.
Isn't that strange? After
Yeah.
all these years, instead of a new Silent Hill, like Shattered Memories is Silent Hill, but it's like a spin-off Silent Hill it has no fog world. It's an ice world.
Ice
And we're
World.
like, we might do Shattered Memories too. Isn't that so weird?
Well, yeah, but I mean, Team Silent's not around anymore, and I bet whoever made Shattered Memories is.
So, okay, what can someone explain the difference between Shattered Memories and the original
So
Silent
Shattered
Hill?
Memories has the same concept of Harry Mason is in Silent Hill after a car crash and must find his daughter Cheryl.
Right.
Except this one, there is no fog world. Instead, it's a normal town with actual people living in it. It's just that there's a snowstorm, and then
Okay.
occasionally it transitions into into like a frozen world where there's nobody around, and you're chased by these weird monster things that change depending on how you play the game, like the way they look.
Mm. Okay.
And as the game goes on, Harry Mason starts discovering strange things where it's not the town that's off, it's actually himself who's off. There's something
Oh.
mysterious about Harry himself.
Ooh, because
Like he
apparently
goes
most of
to.
the
Oh, go ahead, Connor.
apparently most of the Silent Hill heroes have a dark secret, they say, but Harry didn't seem to have any dark secret in this game, at
I
least.
know. It just
Unless his
seemed like a
daughter being adopted is a dark secret, but I don't know if
I don't think that was the intention.
and like them randomly holding their baby like in a field was supposed to be them finding them in the side of the road. Like I'm watching this opening cutscene again now, and I'm like, I couldn't have gotten anything from this. I have no context. Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's what manuals were for.
yeah. Well, like the manual for Zelda actually guides you through the first 2 dungeons. Like the manual for Zelda was not screwing around.
Yeah, it wanted to really like help people along
Yeah.
at first. But yeah, essentially like I'm not sure if we'll do a Shattered Memories cast at some point because I'm not sure how you guys would get around to
Is that the
actually getting to
flashlight
the
from
game.
his phone? Well,
Yes,
I have a Nintendo Wii. Like I could just play it on my Nintendo.
you could get a copy, yeah. And then I know emulation for Jessica.
That would be dishonest and illegal, Jessica.
Okay, well,
Whoa,
I actually
whoa.
own a copy of Silent Hill though, so if Jessica has a Wii, she could borrow it as well.
Yeah.
It'd be a nice contrast because it is a completely different story. There's no cult stuff for one.
Yeah. My Wii has
Hmm.
like a bad disk drive, so it makes a very loud noise while I'm playing games on it.
Oh yeah, so I would just give a little preview. So one example with Harry that's off is he actually lives in Silent Hill in this one, right?
So
So
he
he's a
gets into a
resident.
car crash outside of his house.
Like the outer limits of the town, and he ends up going to his house, and it's a completely different couple living there. And they're just like, "What are you? Who are you?" And he's like, "This is my house." And they're like, "What do you mean? We've been living here for years." It's
'Cause
weird stuff like that.
I should
So
have said in the background, I read like one Silent Hill comic, and in it they were talking about how Silent Hill was just a super pleasant town and everybody was friendly, and I'm like, that's not the vibe I got at all.
well, there's definitely some crime going on even in the regular town with the
Yeah.
drug
But
dealing.
like,
and
was that all just a front for him making his anti-demon juice, or was he genuinely trying to make money off the drugs?
No, he was making money off the drugs.
And like, so the drugs are good for demonic rituals, but also they expel demons.
And they make you hallucinate, apparently.
Yes, but the monsters weren't hallucinations. It's like there's all sorts of stuff going on that I can't quite parse in this game. But I think we give it a recommendation, right? A hearty. recommendation.
Yes.
But
If
use a
you can,
guide.
if you
Definitely
can
use a guide.
survive tank
Definitely
control.
use a guide.
And don't use the Brady Games guide because it just tells you wrong things.
It's straight up bad.
Just get an FAQ from online. Don't use the guide that you actually buy.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry that you, one, did it on normal, and then two, were using that guide.
Yeah, it's just
I
like I
could
can't
see why
believe
it
that
took you that long.
told
I
me
was like,
such nonsense.
because like when we were, when we were doing our Jackbox, I can't speak today, Jackbox
Jackbox
party,
Party Pack.
yeah, yesterday, and then you were like, Ariel was telling us you were just barely at the school. It's like, you're barely still at the school?
No,
Like,
I was out of the school at that point. I was in the
oh, okay.
But yeah, no, the school took me forever. The school was really hard, and then the rest of the game I got through in a night. Like it was a late night, but still.
Mm.
Yeah, third version is Sybil.
Yeah, so in the Shattered Memories, there are 3 versions. There's a nice but sexualized version. There's a more aggressive version. That's the one wearing the cap, and then there's this version who has nice Sybil is basically a nicer version. So sexy Sybil and nice Sybil have the same personality. They just have different outfits,
Mhm.
essentially.
It's like there was something going like because Resident Evil when they did the remake of Resident Evil 3 and the girl lost her tube top and got a more modest outfit.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, there's been kind of a backlash against the sexy outfits in survival horror games, which I mean I don't know, kind of makes sense. Remember how Ashley had like that sweater with no sleeves in Resident Evil 4? Like, are you cold or aren't you?
Well, wasn't she kidnapped though? I'm assuming that's what she was wearing when she got kidnapped.
Well, true, but like, why does she have a knitted tank top? It was like
Uh,
she's wearing a sweater vest with no shirt underneath. And
yeah,
then
odd.
Louise, it's like, I see the president has equipped his daughter with ballistics. God, that game was so ridiculous.
That game was just like a comedy, basically.
Yeah, it's like the Americans saving the day is a cliche that only happens in your Hollywood movies.
But see, I think it's so off topic with RE4, but I do think that RE4 does a it's such a weird game because the tone varies so much. Like at one moment it's like actual serious horror, and then it turns into comedy, and then
That
it goes
little
right back to
Napoleon
horror.
guy.
Yeah,
Like,
that
honestly, I couldn't beat him. I just bought a rocket launcher from the dude and shot him with it.
well, he does die in one hit, which is great.
Yeah. God.
Yep.
That's a
Too bad,
very silly
too bad
game.
you can't use a rocket launcher in Silent Hill.
Oh my gosh. That would have like honestly the bosses except for the school boss where there was actually a trick to it, the bosses were pretty basic. I just wish I had saved my health from the Sybil fight. I guess like so you have to make her run out of bullets or can you just throw the acid at her or at
You
the
can
drug addict?
just throw the acid.
Wow, so I wasted all my health for nothing. For nothing. And I could have just tanked the boss.
Yep.
God, I'm mad. I'm mad. But it's like Jessica, your guide said to wait until she throws away her gun too.
Yeah, that's what it said. Just wait till she throws away her gun and then let her get close to you and then use the thing.
Jessica, were you able to dodge the lightning that the Mothman threw at you at the end?
Okay, so the game guide that I used said to basically just stay where you are, and then right as it hits you, you have to like time it well, I guess. Right after it hits you, like within the second, you have to basically get to your menu, and then you'll see that you've been hurt, but then you just replenish yourself, and you're good.
Oh, see, I only had 2 med kits, so that wouldn't have worked for me.
Oh, I had a heck of health drinks and
Well,
med.
that's the thing, because the
Yeah, I was
Brady
good.
Games guide literally just tells you to stand there and spam health items until you defeat him, and it's like,
Yeah, that's what I did.
but that guide also got me to the point where I lost all my health items against Sybil. So,
That's also fair too.
and like that's the thing with the bosses, like the camera. One of the major failings is you don't see the the butterfly or Samael at all, like during the actual fight. Harry's just firing upwards at nothing. Or you see like the moth's little tail. And it's like I feel like the camera should show you the boss you're fighting. That's like a pretty major problem.
For sure. Yeah, the game was pretty good. There's just a few criticisms, but other
I'm
than that, I liked it.
Yeah, I had a good time. I mean, a lot of the clunkiness can just be, attributed to being a PS1 game. The piano puzzle was really obtuse. That's really the only one that wasn't like I was using a walkthrough, but I feel like I probably could have eventually figured out most of them, not the piano.
Yeah, that's fair. That is a fair assumption for sure. And then I guess one more other criticism would be like, again, how would you know to use that? First off, pick up that red liquid
I think
in the
that's for
first
the
place
for the
and then use
replay
it.
because you see
Uh,
Dr. Kaufman use it on you're supposed to get from
that's
that
fair.
that you
That's
could have
fair.
used it on Civil. But like I
I
had
guess
to walk through some of it.
that's the other criticism then. Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, was that the point of the games that you had to keep replaying it to get more?
I
If
guess
that
so. I
makes
mean,
sense.
how would you have known to save Dr. Kaufman? That's what I want to know. Because that, I don't think there's any clue that you're supposed to do that.
Well, that's if, I think it's depends on the type of player you are. If you're the type of player that likes to explore every aspect, then you would obviously be able to save Kaufman at that point.
Also, what happens if you go into that room and you don't have any handgun bullets? Does the cutscene still show Harry shooting that thing?
Wait, you mean against the monster, the final boss?
No, not the final
No,
Oh,
boss.
no,
wait,
no.
wait.
When you're
When you
saving
save
When you
Kaufman,
rescue Kaufman. I know what happens in the final boss.
it'll probably
No,
still film shoot.
it still shows it because I think I was carrying the shotgun because those big monkey-looking things were out there, so I had a shotgun. But then when you go into that scene, it showed the handgun. I think. I can't remember now. It did change the gun I was using. I know for sure. That for sure.
But it seems like we stayed on topic pretty much this whole time. What time are we at right now, Augustine?
Over 2.5 hours.
Wow.
But yeah, there was a lot to say about Silent Hill, though.
Yeah,
Just
there
this
was.
one game. And if we do Silent Hill 2, there's going to be a lot more to talk about there, too. Because there's a lot of it. There's like, okay, so with Silent Hill 2, it's a much more understandable story because there's no real confusion about what's going on. But the interpretation of the character actions is like, I mean, people still arguing about it like 20 years later, almost.
I know that that's a much more sexual game than this one was.
Well, in a disturbing way, like it's meant to disturb you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wait, there are still differences on how this game is interpreted, is what you're saying?
No, the second game. I mean, people
Oh, the
still argue
second
about
game.
this one too, but it's
Well,
mainly
yeah,
the
but like,
second
there's
game.
not enough there to really come up with your own interpretation. You've got to invent a lot of stuff to make this game make sense.
Yeah.
Like honestly, it's a little bit like Twin Peaks in that way.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean that's kind of a catch-all. Twin Peaks is an influence for every creepy anything that came out since 1992.
I mean, there are a lot of people who say that Twin Peaks influenced them.
Like
at this
even
point.
Link's Awakening was influenced by Twin Peaks apparently, which I
Yep.
don't see that really at all, but okay.
I mean, in retrospect, I mean, spoilers to Twin Peaks, but I guess it turns out to all be a dream at the end of the third season.
Is that what that was? I thought he was in another world at the end of the.
So
But they do
pulled a
mean
lot?
they reference it like you're waking, like you woke up from a dream.
Is that what happened in Lost? I've never seen that.
Well, no, even in Link's Awakening, it's a dream, but it's real. It's just like another reality.
Yeah.
That when you wake up, it'll be shattered
Yeah.
because it's just a dream.
Unlike Silent Hill, which although apparently in the bad ending it is a dream.
Well, yeah, but I feel like that was put in there. If they didn't make any sequels, you could just say the bad ending, the bad plus end, the worst ending is the real ending, and it was all
Yeah,
a
So
dream.
that's
that was dark, where he's like in the car, dead, pretty much. That was
But
very dark.
wait. Did
I
you see
still
that?
found it.
Did you get the bad ending, or did you just
No,
like?
after I played the game, I just went on YouTube and watched all the different endings.
I gotta say, after Phantasmagoria, like that left me wanting more like gore and scares, and this one had the gore and the scares, so definitely scratched that itch.
And
Phantasmagoria.
I mean,
Oh,
Phantasmagoria looks like a fucking kids show compared to this, as far as like tone and all that.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Silent Hill 2, like Silent Hill in general, is much better about handling its mature subject matter.
Both of them take place in New England, though. Oddly enough.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they don't specify where Silent Hill is, but I mean, ostensibly, it's somewhere in New England.
Well, when I was when I was typing in the endings for Silent Hill, there were other because you know how YouTube works. There are other like videos popping up showing like Silent Hill, the real life. Apparently, it's someplace in Pennsylvania or something to that
Oh yeah,
effect.
that town that's still having a fire underneath.
Oh, we should mention the school is based on the school from Kindergarten Cop.
Is it
Because
Which is
really?
amazing.
yeah,
It's amazing.
the people making the game had never seen an American school, and they're like, "Well, what do they look like?" And then I guess they had a VHS of Kindergarten Cop that they could watch to like get reference. So like some of the posters on the walls are just straight up from that movie.
That's funny. That's funny.
Also, what Takayoshi Sato, he didn't know any Caucasian people, so he went for a neutral look for Harry. Is what he said in an interview.
You can't really see very much of like Harry's just a texture on a flat polygon.
No, but he meant in the CG cutscenes he made.
Oh, okay. Because I thought that that Lisa and Cheryl looked Asian. Although Lisa was blonde, which was probably what made me think she was an anime girl type of thing when we saw her.
No, they're all supposed to be white. I don't think there are any Asian characters in this game.
And
Yeah,
apparently there's a
I'd
poster.
assumed they were all white.
I
There's a
mean, yeah.
poster with a picture of Stephen King on it somewhere in town.
Hmm.
Yeah, but it's like a very pixelated image of him.
All
I
right.
didn't see it, but
I don't know. I think for once, just following the guide instead of just trying to explore every little aspect was helpful for me because
yeah, I
it's
mean,
just creepy.
I'm going to give a hot take. Some games better with guides, and I think in that category, Metroid and Zelda, both of those better
Mhm.
with guides. Yeah,
I'd say that from Metroid 1. Yeah. And
yeah,
Metroid 2.
Metroid 1, you can't tell. Super Metroid, I'm sorry, you need a guide for Super Metroid. It doesn't tell you as much as it thinks it does.
I beat that game without a guide
Oh, look at you,
in
Mr.
like
Hardcore Gamer Man.
4 to 5 hours first time.
And
Yeah.
yeah, another hot take, Augustine. Like even with the guide, it still took me more than 4 hours.
Well, you beat it in like 6. That's about average for this game. 4 is like once you know what you're doing.
Yeah. But
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
this
Connor.
it took me 12 hours, but that was because I left the game on for a long time and I
So
didn't
that doesn't really count. That's just the
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I was
running.
at 7 hours by the time I beat the school. So and then I also left it on again in the middle of the hospital. So I think it would have probably been about 6 hours. I don't know. I want to hope that it would have been. But
Yeah, probably 6 or 7 hours, which is about right for your first playthrough of this game.
and like honestly, if I had more handgun bullets, that game would have just because like if you just shoot the monsters, they're not even a problem. But when you try and run away from them, that's when you get killed.
Oh yeah, did anybody ever end up using like the sideways movement?
I
Like any of
tried. It
that?
told me that it was a way to dodge the lightning, but
But
it
it's too
didn't work.
slow. It's way too slow.
I actually did use that for the moth, just kind of like circling around it. That was really the only time I used the sideways shenanigans.
One of the biggest problems I had is the enemy's death animations take so long that I would usually waste extra bullets on them because I thought they weren't dead yet. Because they like writhe around for like 5 minutes.
Wait, did you stomp on them?
No, no. I'm talking about like the larva.
Oh, yeah, I see.
But yeah, some of
I
them.
thought you were saying you weren't even stomping enemies.
No, no, no.
But I'm like, that's how you finish them off, unless you
I
want
would
to waste
stomp the
ammo.
enemies. It's just that sometimes they would like the nurse would just flail around for 5 minutes before she landed, and I would just shoot again because I didn't think she was going down. Because sometimes she fakes you out. She looks like she's going down and she just stabs you again. And then by the time she fell down, she was dead. And I'm like, oh shit. So she was dead. She was just taking forever to fall. And I wasted a bullet. Yeah. It's the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So in summary, go play Silent Hill 1.
Yeah, but use a guide. Do not try and figure it out yourself like Augustine.
Definitely second that. Use a guide for sure.
Yeah, use a guide. There's no shame.
Mhm.
Honestly, there's no shame in using a guide for anything when it
And
comes down to it.
honestly, like even if you're a big weenie like me, I think it's still worth the play through, even if you get scared. Like I mean, unless, I'm still like, I was going to sleep thinking like, I really hope to fucking God, like I don't have dreams about fucking Silent Hill. Like that's how like I was last night. I was like, I really just want to sleep. I don't want to even dream anything. I just want to sleep and
Oh,
not dream anything at all.
this is fun. It's a guide to all of the fun references in Silent Hill.
All right, I'll check it out.
Like apparently there's a newspaper from Silence of the Lambs in one of the vending machines and all sorts
Huh.
of weird stuff. Yep.
I mean, they were proud of their influences.
Yep. I'm still not sure what's going on with Sagan Street, and I'm sure there's a lot of like if all the streets are named after people, I didn't get all of them, but
Mhm.
like Richard Matheson, I saw that. Dean Koontz. It's just I don't know who Block Street is.
Mm. Who knows?
Well, actually, one sec. I'm gonna before we sign off for real. But
I feel like our sign-offs are always the longest parts of
Oh,
our podcast.
here we go.
episodes.
Psycho, the book version of Psycho was written by Robert Bloch.
Oh, there we go.
So I'm sure
Okay.
if we look these all up, we'd always find it. But yeah, you're right. So I'm just gonna say so long, and everybody stay classy out there.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.